Alright, so here's the deal. I'm not that smart, but what I like to do is I love research. And I'm not just talking about the kind of research where you read books. I'm talking about the kind of research where you talk to people, or where you see people, or I have a laboratory, I had a compounding pharmacy for many years, so a lot of our research was actually making things, putting things together. And it turns out that when we discover something, chemicals are secreted in our brain that make us very happy. It's called the aha experience. Have you ever heard the aha experience? It's literally, scientists call it the aha experience. There's a famous story about a guy named Archimedes, who was a Greek mathematician, and there's a famous story about how he was in the bath, and he noticed that when he sat down in the bath, the water went up, and he came up with the formula for volume and displacement, and he ran through the street of Athens naked, going, Eureka! This is a famous story, because he got so excited when he made this discovery. And I get to do this every day, not running through the city naked or I get to discover things every day. I get to form this aha experience every day, and I can't tell you what a pleasure and a joy it is for me. It's addicting. I get on the internet, and I start to see these things, these connections, these ideas, and then I talk to people, and I give them ideas, and they employ them in their lives. And I get these aha experiences all the time. I get paid for it. I've constructed a life where I get paid to have these discovery experiences. So it's not that I'm smart, it's that I know a lot. And there's a difference. There's a difference between having knowledge and knowing a lot of facts and being smart. I'm not that smart, but I know a lot of things. And I know those things because I love the process of discovery, of the aha experiences. And the beautiful thing about it is, you all have it. That's why you're here. That's why you like me. That's why Jennifer says I make it simple. What she really meant to say is I give people aha experiences. Are you with me? Yeah. That's what this is all about. When you hear something on the radio and all of a sudden the dots fall in, the pieces fall in place and the dots get connected, you get this aha experience, and dopamine is secreted in your brain, and you feel like you just got a reward, like you just won $1 million. It's this beautiful experience of making connections that we all are looking for. And it's not just connections in our brain, it's connections with each other. And if you go on the internet, you're going to see dating sites. How many dating sites do you think there are? There's thousands of dating sites. I just saw a new one, farmers dating sites. You seen this one? The farmers dating. And there's dating sites everywhere. Why? Because we're all looking for connections. We're all looking to get this aha experience, this kind of reward experience that occurs when two things come together. And guess what? We have a business that does that. That's what our business is about. It's about making connections. We get paid to make connections with each other. I get paid to make connections in a research venue. I get paid to make connections talking to you. You get paid making connections with your neighbor. You get paid making connections when you discover things. We're all getting paid to make connections, which is what we're all here to do. We're all here to be one thing, to make connections with each other, and we have a business that's set up for that, and thank Dr. Wallach for that, and thank everybody in Longevity for that. Right? So, if I'm successful today, you are going to make connections, and you're going to make a big connection that is going to allow you not only to grow your business, not only to have a great business, but it's going to allow you to help others at the most fundamental level there is, which is the level of their health. If I'm successful today, no matter what health challenge you hear out there, when you go out and do your business, or whatever health challenge you may personally have, if I'm successful today, you will understand the connection between the root level where the disease and the pathology and the breakdown process begins, and the leaf level where we see it. Should I say that again? If I'm successful today, you will be able to make a connection between the fundamental root nature where the disease process begins and the leaf level where it is completely mind-blowing and overwhelming and too complex for anybody to possibly understand. I get letters all the time from people who've got 20 different symptoms: high blood pressure, and glaucoma, and cancer, and skin problems, and infertility, and insomnia. And some of these people have all these problems at the same time. And it's understandable to say, what the heck do I do? I'm successful today, when you hear of a case like that, or anybody who maybe not that complex, but somewhere along those lines, you'll be able to go back to the room and see how it all begins. Because that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about how this whole crazy disease process begins. USA's fourth leading cause of death, pharma drugs. If you count in doctor mistakes, iatrogenic disease is the third leading cause of death. 180,000 people a year every year die. Targeting the gut-brain connection can impact immunity. They want to now give people drugs for the brain, so-called antipsychotic drugs, to help quiet down inflammatory conditions in the gut. Because they notice that there's a brain connection to Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So instead of leveraging the brain connection with nutrition or with thinking or with lifestyle, then we get antipsychotic meds for people who have Crohn's disease. Treatment option for Alzheimer's possible. Guess what it is? This is, by the way, these are not just lay people's articles on the internet. These are scientific journals. This one's from the journal Nature Communications. Guess what the new treatment is? The new drug for Alzheimer's disease.
Eggs.
What is it?
Eggs.
Eggs, no. It's an anti-inflammatory drug. It's it's the same one. It's diclofenac, which is an old-time anti-inflammatory drug. What does that tell you? Alzheimer's disease is an inflammatory process, which we're going to talk about here in a bit. Oh, I love this one. This is all from one day, you guys. This is from the a clinical journal of the American Society of Nephrology. Nephrology means kidney disease, or kidney health. High and low levels of good cholesterol can cause premature death. High and low levels. The problem isn't the cholesterol, it's the high and the low. But the cholesterol gets blamed. The body doesn't like high, the body doesn't like low. It's not the cholesterol's fault, it's the chemical imbalance that's causing things to be high and low. Study links child obesity at age 9 to 11 years to gestational diabetes in the mother. Gestational diabetes, as some of you may know, is a blood sugar condition that occurs in pregnant women. But all pregnant women have it, they just don't all have it to an extreme degree. Which means the child's weight is going to be affected by the mother's blood sugar condition. Did anybody's gynecologist ever tell them that? Did anybody's fertility doctor ever tell them that? That you have to watch your blood sugar? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Does burnt food give you cancer? This is the link between something called HCAs, which are found in charbroiled meat, and cancer. And this one is from, I can't see which journal this is here. This one is from Creative, I don't see what the journal is here, where the article, citation is. Does burnt food give you cancer? It's all in one day. This is a book I'm reading, Snowball in a Blizzard. A physician's note on the uncertainty in medicine. This is a doctor saying, we don't know what the heck is going on. This is literally, this is what he says here. We have no idea, but patients expect certainty, but we don't know. The reason they don't know is because medicine is talking at the leaf level, not the root level. So, how do we get in this picture? Well, before I even start, I gotta tell you, health and wellness are multi-dimensional. And I'm not going to belabor this, but it's very important that you know that this is where I'm coming from as a healthcare professional. When I say they're multi-dimensional, I'm talking about 4 levels of health or 4 levels of the lack of health. All health or the lack thereof, all health or disease starts off spiritual. I'm not going to beat this, I'm not going to belabor this point because we're here to talk about nutrition and health, but I want to be very clear here that if you're not as healthy as you want to be or should be, or your client isn't, or your customer isn't, or your neighbor isn't, or somebody that you know isn't, it starts off as spiritual crisis. And this is very important because sometimes in the world of nutrition we think, oh, we just take this vitamin, you just take this supplement, you just take this dietary change, and people don't get better. Because there's a spiritual element that needs to be addressed. At the spiritual level, everything is connected. So we talked earlier about how we all are looking for connection. Really, we're all looking to be spiritual. When we are disconnected from our world, disconnected from nature, disconnected from God, disconnected from each other, we feel separate. In Latin, there's a word that means separate. It means without. What is that word? Without or separate. You speak Spanish? Say it louder. Louder. Sin. Sin means separate. It means without. This is what original sin is. It's we're born feeling like we're not connected to God, we're not connected to spirit, we're somehow disconnected. And this needs to be recognized if we are going to be fully healthy. In fact, just recognizing this can reverse the disease process. Just recognizing that. If you do nothing but that, if you recognize that you're connected to God. The next level down in the healing process, or the lack of healing, the health process or the disease process, is the mental nature, which is linked to the emotional nature. Every time we think a thought or feel a feeling, a hormone is produced that makes our body for better or worse. Every time we think a crappy thought, jealousy, anger, rage, and emotions and thoughts are linked. So every time you feel a crappy feeling or think a crappy thought, lack of forgiveness, fear, whatever it is, guess what? We make a crappy body. Not airy-fairy hippie talk here. This is hardcore biochemistry. The biochemistry of a crappy thought makes a crappy body. And likewise, the biochemistry of a beautiful thought, of a loving thought, of a forgiving thought, of a peaceful thought, of a content thought, makes a beautiful body. And this needs to be recognized. And if we don't do anything else but connect spiritually and understand our mental and emotional connection to our bodies, we're going to get healthy. And then we come to the physical dimension, which is incredibly important. But it's part of a fourfold, multi-dimensional system. It has to occur within a context of mental and emotional wellness and spiritual wellness. And I'm not going to beat that up, I'm not going to repeat it, I just want you to be clear that that's where I'm coming from. Are we good? Yes. Okay. Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, in that order. There's a concept in science called simplexity. You ever hear this term, simplexity? Simplexity is a cross between simple and complex. The science of simplexity is the science that takes into account the simple nature of the seemingly complex. You know, mathematicians can take all of this room, all of the walls and the tables and all the people here and the tablecloth and the purses and the seemingly random CDs and papers that are strewn about and convert it into a mathematical equation, maybe a couple mathematical equations underneath all of reality. That's as simple as it gets. If you take all of the things that we see in the material world, it's all made up of 90 or so essential elements. There's a simple nature underneath the seemingly complex. And this simple nature underneath the seemingly complex is where we have power, where we have leverage. Maybe you hear that word, leverage? People tell you sometimes what the greatest invention ever was. And most people say, well, it's the wheel. I don't think so. I think it's the lever. Because the lever allows you to move big things with just a simple little move. That's pretty cool. The lever. In business, you always want to have leverage in your company. You always want a simple little move to be able to create lots of big results. Understanding simplexity gives you leverage because it allows you to make a few little tweaks at the bottom and create massive changes at the top. This is very powerful. It's powerful in business. It's powerful in mathematics. It's powerful in physics. It's powerful in engineering. It's powerful everywhere in life, but it's no more powerful than it is in the world of health. Because our health is so important to us. Nothing's more important than our health. If you're sick, if you have, God forbid, cancer, nothing else matters except your healing process. There is nothing that's more important than our health. And if you have it, praise God that you have it. And even if you don't have it as well as you should, praise God you got what you got. You know, I say a little prayer every time I go to the bathroom. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. You know, something as simple as going to the bathroom. Something as simple as being able to walk. If you can't go to the bathroom, you appreciate going to the bathroom. If you can't walk, you appreciate walking. If you have a sore shoulder, you appreciate being able to move your shoulder freely. There is nothing more fundamental to us in our health. So, when it comes to simplexity, there's lots of places where it's appropriate, but it's most appropriate when it comes to our health. By understanding the nature of simplexity, we can make a few little moves at the bottom and create massive changes at the top. On the other hand, if we don't understand simplexity, we can make a few little moves at the bottom and create massive disastrous changes at the top. So simplexity is a fact whether we like it or not. So to break down everything into its most simple components, one way we can do it is by taking this vast universe that we live in and breaking it up into two components. We live in a binary world. We live in a polar world. No creation could even occur if there wasn't a positive charge and a negative charge. You guys understand this? A positive charge and a negative charge allow for movement because, as is said in science and philosophy, nature abhors a vacuum. So when you have something that has a little and you have something that is a lot, things go from where there's a lot to a little and you get a flow. The binary nature of the universe requires a positive and a negative, and everywhere we look we have a binary nature. We got light and dark, we got up and down, we got right and wrong, we got black and white, we got good and bad. We got all kinds of binary opposing sides. This creates a polarity that's very important. We have health and wellness or health and disease. That's a very important polarity. You can probably make up your own. Living systems have to have a way of navigating those poles. So that if something is too hot, they can go to where it's cooler. If something's too cold, they can go to where it's warmer. All living systems, in fact, that is really the fundamental job of a living system, is to go from cold to hot, from hot to cold, and keep going back and forth, and to try to find a stable point. That's called, in biology, homeostasis. And that is the prime directive of any living system, is homeostasis, is to try to navigate between the poles. If we are sick, we have a homeostatic issue. We are not navigating between the poles correctly. Now, in the body, those poles aren't black and white. They're not up and down. They're not good and bad. In the body, that polarity is measured by pole A and pole B. Pole A, and this is very, very important. In fact, if you leave right now, this is the most important thing I'm going to say. The polarity that determines how healthy or how not healthy we are going to be is a polarity between safety and a polarity of threat. This is the primal polarity of any biological system that wants to survive. It has to somehow get away from the threat and go to the safety. If we are sick, we are under conditions of threat. Any living system that is not as healthy as it needs to be is under conditions of threat. Did you get that? That's very, very important. And it's not just important in the body. In fact, if you're having a problem in a relationship, which is made up of two people, guaranteed, it's a relationship with your kid, a relationship with your husband, with your wife, with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, with your boss, with your neighbor, with the government, with anything, guaranteed, somewhere in that relationship, someone doesn't feel safe. That's the cure for all relationship problems. That's the cure for all political problems. That's the cure for all problems. Because all living systems need to be safe. You might say, all living systems need to be saved. Hello? Are you with me? This is what that's about. It's about safety. Living systems need to be safe. And in the body, when the body doesn't feel safe, an entire symphony of biochemistry is initiated that creates the sickness process. In fact, the word for sickness reveals what I just told you. The word for sickness is not safety or dis-ease. It tells you right in the word. You ever hear hidden in plain sight? That's hidden in plain sight. Dis-ease is when the system is not safe. And we have developed a mechanism in the body for determining whether our world is safe or not. In fact, we have a part of our body that determines everything in the world and turns the outside world into the inside world. We have almost like Well, they're called sensors. And we can sense the world. And we sense the world and determine whether it is safe or not safe. We sense the world, and how we sense the world gets turned into our bodies. And there's an intermediary or a bridge system between the outside world and the inside world. It's called the nervous system. The job of the nervous system is to take the outside world and convert it into the inside world. The nervous system has, when we think of the nervous system, most people think of the brain and the spinal cord, but the nervous system has satellites to the world. One of those satellites is the eyes. Another one is the ears. Another one is our taste buds. Another one is our nose. Another one is our sense of touch through our skin. We call these satellites the senses because they're sensors. They sense the outside world, and they turn the outside world into the inside world. But here's the thing. We got two nervous systems. Did you know you have two nervous systems? How many of you guys have heard the bright side, by the way?
Great show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's my radio show for you guys who want to... I talk about this stuff every day. One day I'm not going to be on the air anymore because I say the same thing every day. Pretty much. I do. I repeat myself every day. Sometimes the same day I'll repeat myself 5 or 6 times. There's not a lot of stuff. There's simple things at the bottom of seemingly complex phenomena. So we have this way of perceiving the world through our senses, which are our eyes and our nose and our taste buds and our skin and our ears. But we have two ways of sensing the world, as you now know. We sense the world through the eyes of threat, through the eyes of the smell or the senses of danger, and we sense the world through the senses of safety. Through the eyes of threat, if you're a medical professional or a scientist, you don't call it the eyes of threat or the senses of threat. You call it the threat nervous system, or technically, the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is designed to spot lions and tigers and snakes and threats. The relaxation nervous system, the love nervous system, and by the way, this primal binary nature can be divided as fear and love. You heard that before? Fear and love are the fundamental primal nature for biological systems. We either see the world through the parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system of fear, or we see the world through the sympathetic nervous system of love, the para, meaning next to sympathetic nervous system. PNS, SNS. So remember, the world's binary. Everywhere you look, there's this polar nature, this binary nature, positive, negative, good, bad, light, dark. Everywhere you look, nothing could occur, nothing could live without having this polar nature. And in the body, this polar nature manifests itself as, is life okay, or is it not okay? That's pretty simple right there. Right? You want simple? Every disease process follows life not being okay. That's the core of every single chronic degenerative disease. The sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive because you see, when we're under threat, the good stuff shuts down. Because one of the fundamental binary polarities is survival or thrival. Under conditions of survival, when we have to survive, our ability to thrive will shut down. Resources will be redirected to survival. Everything we love about life is in the thrival side. Survival is just to get you through, just to get you by. So under conditions of survival or sympathetic nervous system overdrive, we lose the ability to think creatively, to problem solve. The blood is literally redirected from the front of your brain to the back, which is called your reptilian brain. Because the reptilian brain wants you to be a reptile. And all a reptile cares about is surviving. Under conditions of sympathetic overdrive, you will not be able to sleep. Because when your survival's at stake, your body's not going to let you sleep. Under conditions of sympathetic overdrive, your blood will clot. Because to the body, a major threat is bleeding. If you got eaten by a lion in the African savannah, you can want to bleed all over the ground. So the body designed a system so that when there's threat, the blood will coagulate and clot. This is why they give you blood thinners after you have surgery. Because after you've had a surgical procedure, your body doesn't know you're an operator. You're going to fix you on the African savannah being eaten by a lion. So your blood clots. So they have to give you blood thinners. Which, by the way, are one of the most toxic, deadly drugs in the entire pharmacopoeia, which is saying something. Under conditions of survival threat, your blood pressure will go up. And it will get redirected from the extremities towards your muscles. So you can run. Under conditions of sympathetic nervous system activation or survival activation, you will not be able to make a baby. You'll be infertile. Because your body's not stupid. We may be stupid, but your body's not stupid. If you're under conditions of survival, you're not going to be able to make a baby. You'll go to the doctor and they'll jab you up with hormones. But you have to take care of the problem, which is sympathetic overdrive. Under conditions of sympathetic overdrive, under conditions of activation of the stress nervous system, you will not be able to have a bowel movement. Yeah. Under conditions of sympathetic nervous system activation, you will be constipated. Remember earlier, last year, they had a whole thing with Ebola. Remember Ebola, the whole Ebola scare? They want to get Ebola. They don't have an Ebola czar. They always want to have a czar whenever there's some kind of problem. Drug czar, Ebola czar, energy czar. I was thinking when I heard about this Ebola czar, I was like, we need a constipation czar. Because everybody's constipated. Because everybody's in survival mode. Because everybody's in this sympathetic activation mode. Under conditions of sympathetic activation, your heart will beat really fast. Under conditions of sympathetic nervous system activation, your heart will juggle. It won't be in a solid, powerful fashion. It will fibrillate. Under conditions of sympathetic nervous system activation, every single thing we hate about being alive will accrue. Because the body's not used to being in sympathetic nervous system activation all the time. It's a great book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And in this book, Robert Sapolsky, who's a biologist, says, in the wild, when the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, it only kicks in briefly. And then it's gone. We have created a culture where we're in sympathetic nervous system overdrive 24/7. We never get out of it from cradle to grave. Now, if all of this crappy stuff happens under sympathetic nervous system activation, you may be thinking, well, gosh, what's up here on the parasympathetic side? Well, guess what? Under the parasympathetic side, you sleep like a baby. Under the parasympathetic side, you grow, you repair, you fight disease, your brain is more creative. Under conditions of parasympathetic nervous system activation, of relaxation, activation, you have healthy digestion, healthy bowel movements, you have energy. You think you want to be parasympathetic? You better believe you do. In fact, this is why I said, if you leave now, this is the most important thing to understand about health. Get parasympathetic. Get out of sympathetic mode. Activate the rest and digest nervous system versus the fight or flight nervous system. Have you guys heard these terms before, by the way?
Yes.
Fight or flight versus rest and digest. All systems need to be safe, no matter what that system is. Whether it's a country, or whether it's a family dynamic, or whether it's a city dynamic, or whether it's the body, or whether it's anything the body is interacting with, all systems need to be safe. When they're not safe, they're not at ease. When they're not safe, they are dis-eased. And that's the most powerful thing I could tell you. We're going to talk about how this whole thing happens, and we're going to tell you what you can do about it, but in principle, that's the bottom line right there. Get the system back to safety. Get it saved, if you will. Right? Is this common sense, by the way? If I say it's complicated, this is how simple this is. Simplexity, the simple ideas underneath the most complex phenomenon is simplexity. So how do we get in this pickle? Where 70% of Americans are on a prescription drug, where 30% of Americans are on 5 prescription drugs, where we're spending $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 per man, woman, and child on health. Trillions upon trillions, you guys. I know we have number inflation here, but that's a big number. Trillions and trillions of dollars in health. And we're not getting better. How do we get in this pickle? How did this happen? Well, the reason it's important to understand how it happens is because if we can understand how it happens, we can turn this thing around. And for most of us, it begins woefully early, scarily early. In fact, for most of us, especially if we're over the ages of 40 or 50, which is most of us in this room, it's changing a little bit, slowly. But for people over the ages of 40 and 50, it started at birth. That's when this problem began. Because you see, nature has a system for building babies, for turning baby people, or baby mammals really, into adults. See, when human beings, it's true about all mammals, but particularly for us here, human beings, when we're born, we got big heads. And so we got to come out early. Now, as it is, coming out of the womb, as any woman will tell you, right? It's no picnic. Imagine if our heads were bigger. Imagine if we were more developed. So we'd come out early. In fact, we come out so early, part of us isn't even developed yet. A couple of major parts of us are not developed when we're born. Our digestive system is not developed. And our immune system is not developed. And it's no coincidence that our digestive system and our immune system are part of the same process. Because the immune system is the digestive system. The immune system is our body's defense department. And the major threat to the body is something getting in it that shouldn't be in it. Now, you do have a defense department located in the outside. Sometimes things can get in through the outside, but that's minor. You do have a little bit of a defense department inside the respiratory tract and the sinuses. Sometimes things can sneak in through the respiratory tract and the sinuses, but that's not anywhere near as significant as the most obvious place where things get into the body, which is in the digestive tract, because we eat. We have to eat. So we're constantly putting the enemy inside of our body. So nature has created the system for vetting, for making sure that the enemy doesn't get in. You know what I mean? To vet, to make sure that the bad guys don't get in. That system is largely housed in the intestine. And when a baby is born, because we have big heads and we can't come out as it is, it's hard enough for us to come out, those two systems, the digestive system / immune system, are born premature. So we are very vulnerable. But nature's perfect, God is divine. There's no accidents here. Everything is in full working order, and there's something in place to keep the baby safe, to keep the baby protected. There's a perfectly balanced system where that baby will get nourished with just exactly what it needs to grow the intestine and to grow the digestive tract, and it occurs as the baby's coming down the birth canal. As the baby is coming down the birth canal, he is bathed with this coating of wonderful, wonderful bacteria. And these bacteria, which are living creatures in their own right, every bit as alive as we are, as small and as relatively undeveloped as they may be, this coating of bacteria coats the baby as the baby's coming down the birth canal. And the bacteria then migrate through the baby's nose, and they go in the baby's mouth, and they go down the baby's digestive tract, and they go into the baby's intestine, and then they make home. They nest. They implant. And from that point forward, those bacteria are that baby's best health friends. And every day we learn more and more about what these bacteria do. These bacteria make vitamins for us. These bacteria purify our food for us. These bacteria digest our food for us. These bacteria fight bad bacteria. These bacteria fight bad funguses. These bacteria communicate to our brain and tell us what to eat. We decide whether we want good food or bad food based on the type of bacteria we have in our gut. These bacteria house extra genes for us. They share genes with us. They share information with our cells. These bacteria help our intestine run. These bacteria, in short, are our best health friends. And anything we can do to support those bacteria is critically important. But the problem is, 1/3 of babies are born cesarean section. They come out of the belly. They don't get that. And many in this room, more people in this room than 1/3 probably, because they stopped doing them. They do them less, but they went crazy when we were younger. That also presupposes that the mother is healthy. That the mother hasn't done anything to damage her bacteria, because the bacteria are, after all, coming from the mother. How many of our mothers knew what they were doing when they were eating food, or selecting proper food to eat? Chlorinated water kills those bacteria. Fluoridated water kills those bacteria. The baby's just born now. This baby is a minute old, and his health is already compromised if he's come out cesarean section, or if he's coming out of a mom who's not nutritionally competent herself. The next step in the process is the divine force is perfect. There's a system in place to grow the bacteria in addition to growing the baby, in addition to supporting the baby's health. That system is called breast milk. This is the main job of breast milk, is to sustain the bacteria, to nourish the bacteria, to grow the digestive tract / immune system, to support the body's immunity and support digestive health. But 1/3 of babies aren't breastfed. And of the remaining 2/3, they're not breastfed long enough. Or they're being breastfed from moms who are sick themselves or not nutritionally competent themselves. The baby's not even 2 months old yet, and he's already on the road to disaster. Now the baby's a year old by now, say he's 9, 12 months old, you feed him the formula or even the breast milk, and he's colicky. Colicky comes from the word colon. Or he's grumpy. Or he cries until he gets some food, and then he gets some food, and then he's okay, and then he cries some more. He's not satisfied, or he has eczema, skin rash, or he has pimples, he's got breakouts. Or he's got snottiness, runny nose, he's got ear infections. All of these are manifestations of problems with the bacteria at the gut level and problems with the immune system. Both of which are supposed to be grown by the breast milk and by the bacterial bath that the baby gets. Now the baby's a year old, a year and a half old. And he's cranky a lot, he's grumpy. And what do moms do? God love us, because we don't know the difference, we don't know any better. What do we do when our baby's cranky? We give apple juice. Or we give pear juice. Of course, that quiets the baby down for a little bit, because now he's got a hit of sugar. But then the sugar level drops, and he's cranky again. So what do? Give him some more, of course. And this goes on. And it may start off with apple juice at the age of 6 months, or 8 months, or 12 months, or 14 months, or 16 months, or 18 months, or pretty soon it's soda. And then next thing is sandwiches. And next thing is cereal. Next thing is all the food we've created in our food culture. And now the baby's 6 or 7 or 8, and he's been subsisting on this up and down hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, low blood sugar roller coaster. He's getting apple juice and pear juice and cereal, and of course he's starting to get overweight. In fact, once this system becomes so volatile, up and down, not only is he now overweight, but now we actually have a name for it. It's called diabetes. And juvenile diabetes is an epidemic, and we don't even know how many people are diagnosed as juvenile diabetes, as having juvenile diabetes, but they still have blood sugar problems. We don't even call it juvenile diabetes anymore. We call it type 2 diabetes. We used to call it adult onset diabetes. Now they call it type 2 diabetes because everybody gets it. So the baby's not 6 or 7 years old, he's a type 2 diabetic, or if he's not a type 2 diabetic, he might as well be, because we name people and label people with diabetes on an arbitrary scale. So just because you're not a diabetic doesn't mean you're not DYS means messed up, dysglycemic. Just because you're not officially a diabetic because they didn't see on the chart, oh, you're fine. Diabetes is, just for simplicity's sake, diabetes, you have to have a score of 120 to be a diabetic. That's the amount of sugar in your blood, right? But if you're 119.99999, you're not a diabetic. That's how stupid this idea is of how we diagnose and how we label people. If you're 119.999, you're healthy, but if you're 120, then you get the drugs, you get the insurance, you get the label, you get everything. So just because you're not officially diabetic doesn't mean you're not dysglycemic, you don't have messed up blood sugar. You can rest assured, if you've got the symptoms of dysglycemia, which are weight problems, or cravings for sugar, or an appetite that you can't stop, an appetite that can't be suppressed, the chances are pretty good you're dysglycemic. And now the kid is now 12 or 13 years old. And when we are on this high blood sugar, low blood sugar roller coaster chronically, eventually the body's emergency system kicks in. Because you see, low blood sugar is an emergency. Hypo, low, glycemia is an emergency. So when we're hypoglycemic, our emergency system kicks in. Conversely, when we're hyperglycemic, too much sugar, our emergency system kicks in, because just like low blood sugar is an emergency, so is high blood sugar, because sugar is explosive stuff. Anybody live near a grain silo? No? Nobody live near a grain silo? So they have these big buildings, they store grain at grain silos, right? And you don't smoke near a grain silo, right? Why is that? Because grain silos are very explosive. They catch fire quickly and they explode quickly. What do they keep in a grain silo? Sugar. That's what grain is, especially when it's ground, finely ground. It's sugar. It's explosive. You want to see how explosive sugar is? Stick a marshmallow in fire. Does it burn really slowly? No, it goes poof. Because sugar explodes. So sugar in the body, it represents a major emergency. In fact, between digestive health problems and sugar problems, you've got pretty much the cause of all chronic degenerative diseases, all the major signs of disease, all the major signs of bodily threat are in digestive problems and blood sugar problems. But fortunately, we have an emergency management system that lives in two little glands that are kept in the sort of towards the back of the body, in the middle of your body, a little bit lower. Anybody know what those glands are called? What are they? The adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are your stress glands. They sit on top of the kidneys. The kidneys are your renal glands. The adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys. Kidney's not really a gland, but they call it the renal system. The adrenal gland is supposed to pick up the slack when we're low blood sugar. And it's supposed to protect us when we're high blood sugar. And as we go up and down, eventually the adrenal gland secretes its hormones. Particularly one hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the body's emergency hormone, and when cortisol is spotted, it activates the sympathetic nervous system. Are you starting to see how this picture is taking place, by the way? Yeah. The baby starts off with a messed up gut, and it extends itself into dysglycemia, high blood sugar, low blood sugar. Eventually, the adrenal glands kick in to stabilize the system. The adrenal glands work by secreting cortisol. Cortisol activates the emergency nervous system, which shuts everything down. Which shuts down, I should say everything, which shuts down all the good stuff. We go into sympathetic emergency threat following adrenal activation, following messed up blood sugar, following digestive distress. I call that the triangle of disease. And you will find it underneath every one of the 12,800 different diseases that the World Health Organization says we suffer from. Underneath all our breakdowns is this triad of systems that are trying to compensate. But they're not equipped because we've been messing with the food supply, because we don't understand the power of sugar, and because our adrenal gland is trying to cope with the whole problem. Now, once the adrenal gland is running chronically because of this high blood sugar, low blood sugar roller coaster, and because of digestive distress, eventually the gland in our body that doesn't give us emergency energy, that gives us regular energy, that gland starts to slow down to compensate. So you got this digestive distress, blood sugar distress, adrenal distress, and eventually the body's regular energy system slows down. Where is that regular energy system housed? Does anybody know? Thyroid. Say it louder. The thyroid. And on our checklist of epidemics that Americans and human beings suffer from, you can include hypothyroidism, which follows adrenal distress, dysglycemia, and a messed up digestion. You can take all the darn synthroids you want, all the iodine you want. If you don't address that triangle, you're going to be hypothyroid. Oh, and it gets even worse. Because the thyroid, when it's suppressed, shuts everything down. And the thyroid regulates the digestive system. So you're hypothyroid, now you're going to have even more digestive problems, which are going to change the blood sugar problems, which are going to lead to more adrenal distress, which are going to slow the thyroid down more, which is going to lead to more digestive problems and more blood sugar problems and more adrenal distress, which is going to slow the... You see where we're going here? You get this vicious downward spiral of breakdown. You guys, this is all chronic degenerative disease. ALL. Every last one of them. And the reason the medical model cannot address our diseases is because it's ignoring the triangle of this downward spiral of distress and disease that occurs underneath the arthritis and the Alzheimer's disease and the osteoporosis and the cancer and everything else. This is simplexity. This is the simple ideas that are underneath the seemingly complex phenomenon. It's the most powerful thing you have in your armamentum as a multi-level marketer, as a longevity business person. Because it means you don't need special protocols for arthritis and MS and Alzheimer's disease. And I get what do I do for macular degeneration? What do I do for osteoporosis? It doesn't matter. That's why I say the same thing all the time on my radio show. My presentations say the same thing. You're not going to need me. I'm going to be irrelevant. And you know what? That's a good thing, because the job of a good healthcare professional is to take himself out of the equation. The job of a good healthcare professional is to really heal you so you're done. Or not even heal you, but help you heal yourself. So we're done. Underneath this, the seemingly complex craziness of chronic degenerative disease, you will always find this triad. And if you don't address the triangle, you will not be able to address the disease. If you don't address the root, you can't address the leaves. And this is why the medical model fails us. This is why we have more doctors per capita than any other culture in the history of mankind. But we're sicker than any other culture in the history of mankind. There's nothing they can do. It's not like doctors are bad people. They want to help. It's the model. The model is about the leaves, not about the root. And the reason it's about the leaves and not about the root comes down to another very simple idea. You see, we look at each other, and it looks like we got bodies, we got faces, we got hair, we got the typical human shape. Really, a dog has got a typical dog shape. But because of our cat or monkey or whatever, any living system looks, we have these characteristic forms and shapes that they take, but what we don't see is that our bodies are made up of tiny little components. In fact, as we're sitting here, as you guys are sitting here listening to me and as I'm talking to you, there's actually 100 trillion little entities inside our body that are pumping our blood, that are helping us think, that are perceiving the environment, doing everything we do. Everything we do is done by a complex society of living entities that don't know we exist any more than we know they exist. You know what those little entities, of which we have 100 trillion of them in our body, are called? They're called cells. And this is so amazing. We're made up of an entire ecosystem. We are like God to those cells. As much as God is God to us, we're God to the cells. And just like we don't have any way of comprehending God, our cells have no way of comprehending us. They don't even know we exist. But if we take into account the health of our cells will be able to do what they need to do. When we're sick, it's not our bodies that are sick. It's our cells that are sick. And the failure of modern medicine is it doesn't treat the cell, it treats the body. And if the cell is sick, you can't treat the body. And the reason they don't teach this in medical school is because medicine is not allowed in the cell. Medicine is not welcome in the cell. The only thing medicine can do to a cell is poison it, remove it, or radiate it. That's the only thing you can do to a cell if you're a doctor. You can poison it, you can radiate it, or you can remove it. Medicine is not welcome at the level of the cell, so we don't ever hear about this. We hear about the thyroid, we hear about the kidney, we hear about the intestine, but nobody has intestinal disease. They have intestinal cell disease. Nobody has lung disease. They have lung cell disease. This is misdirection. Magicians use this all the time. They say, look over here while I'm picking your pocket over there. So medical model says, oh, we'll lower your TSH. Don't worry about that silly thyroid cell. They don't say that because they don't really even think about it. But our attention is drawn to the organ and not to the cell where the disease process begins, because medicine is not welcome at the level of the cell. But guess what, you guys? That doesn't matter. Because while medicine is not welcome at the level of the cell, God is. In fact, God, through us, as the intermediaries, has all the power we need over the cell to make the cell healthy. Because you see, a cell doesn't really even need that much. All a cell needs is 3 things. And if you're sick, no matter where that organ is located, it doesn't even matter. There are a cell system somewhere that are not getting those 3 things. Cell only needs 3 things, and drugs aren't part of the deal. A cell only needs food, oxygen, and a clean place to do its work. That's all a cell needs. And if you are not as healthy as you want to be, or should be, or could be, you've got a cellular system somewhere that is starving, suffocating, or toxic. Starvation, suffocation, and toxification. Those are the only 3 things that ever go wrong with the cell, and all diseases are diseases at the cell level. Which means if we want to be healthy, all we got to do is figure out how to feed the cell, how to breathe the cell, and how to provide the cell with a clean place to do its work. And it's so simple, it's unbelievable. It's so simple, it is. When I say unbelievable, I'm not being hyperbolic. You're going to be like, it's too simple, I don't believe it. It's literally unbelievable. So a cell only needs 3 things. It only needs food, it needs oxygen, and it needs a clean place to do its work. So let's talk about the food first. Actually, let's talk about the oxygen first. The fastest way to activate the sympathetic nervous system, to shut off healing, to put us into emergency, to put us into constipation mode, and infertility mode, and insomnia mode, and anxiety mode, and cancer mode, and lack of immunity mode, and viral mode, the fastest way to do it is to stop breathing. You can go 40 days or more without food. You can go a week without water, or 5 days without water. But you can't go 3 minutes without oxygen. And if you want to know what it's like to turn on the sympathetic nervous system really quickly, if you say, I want to experience this for myself. Alright? All you got to do is hold your breath. If you hold your breath for, say, 15 seconds, right? This little voice in your head is going to say, time to breathe. And you say, no, I'm not going to breathe. I'm going to go another 10 seconds. And then you go another 10 seconds without breathing. And the little voice is going to say, I said it's time to breathe. And you're going to, no, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go another few seconds. And you keep holding your breath. You know what's going to start happening? You're going to start shaking. You're going to get really anxious. Your heart's going to start beating really fast. If it were time to sleep, there's no way you would ever be able to sleep. If you want to do anything that was important for the joy of life or the function of life, nothing, you wouldn't be able to do anything. In fact, if you know anybody who gets a panic attack, anybody get panic attacks in this room? If you know anybody who gets a panic attack, they'll tell you right before the panic attack they're not breathing. Well, that sounds like, oh my God, I would never do that. I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm going to make sure I breathe. And guess what? We are all chronically holding our breath. Because one of the ways the body responds to stresses is by holding the breath. In fact, if you sit here and think, as you're listening to me, and you think about something crappy in your life, think about a bill, or think about a bad relationship, or think about something that's worrying you, notice how, for a split second, you hold your breath. Experiencing this? This is one of the ways the body responds to stress, is by holding the breath. And when it happens just once, that's not a problem, but over the course of our lives, because we're constantly bombarded with stresses, we learn to chronically contract our body. And we end up with these little pockets of what is called hypoxia, low oxygen. Specifically, little pockets of blood low oxygen. So over the course of time, we learn to not breathe. Not necessarily suffocation, not breathe, but microscopically not breathe. And this creates little pockets of distress. One of the ways the body deals with these little pockets of distress is by protecting itself. It protects itself by walling off those little areas of distress. Little areas of lack of oxygen represent emergencies to the body, so the body will create a little beaver's dam, a little wall around those pockets. So what do we call that system? What do we call that process of building a wall around a damaged area? Anybody know? Starts with an I. It's called inflammation. And over the course of our lives, we develop little pockets of micro-inflammation that follow low levels of oxygen. So what ends up happening is we go through our lives with these low levels of oxygen, which lead to low levels of inflammation, which are undetectable, by the way, until they get bigger, and low levels of distress, low levels of panic, low levels of anxiety. Thoreau said, all men live lives of quiet desperation. Did you ever hear that quote? This is how we live our lives, in quiet desperation, because partially, remember, mental and emotional, spiritual are all there too, but from a physical perspective, we're at low levels of hypoxia and microinflammation, which is the best news you've ever heard if you're dealing with chronic degenerative disease, because what it means is you can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, you can reduce the microinflammation by breathing. Yeah. Breathing. Simple breathing. Not really simple because we don't know how to breathe correctly. Whenever you're breathing, you got to breathe in a rhythm. That's the key. It's the rhythm. You have to breathe deeply so that it's all the way down your belly, back all the way to your feet. You can visualize it. Wow. And you want to breathe slowly. And the combination of slowly, deeply, and rhythmically turns off the stress response and activates the relaxation response instantly. Fights cancer instantly. Builds tissue instantly. In fact, anybody have a high blood pressure cuff? Or blood pressure cuff? Anybody with hypertension? Blood pressure cuff? One of the fastest ways to act, or one of the classic signs of the sympathetic nervous system, of the activation of the stress response, is hypertension. We have 80 million Americans with hypertension. Doctors call it essential hypertension. You know what that means? It means hypertension, and we don't have any idea what causes it. Well, I just told you what caused it, and now you're now smarter than your doctor officially. Because this whole idea, they call it essential because they don't know what causes it, right? They say essential hypertension. Essential means it's just part of you. It's essential to you. It's part of your nature. That's who you are. You're hypertense. No. It's a sign that the body's in distress. And if you don't believe me, get a high blood pressure cuff or blood pressure cuff, and if you have high blood pressure, and sit down on the couch, take your blood pressure. It'll be 130 over whatever, 90 or whatever your blood pressure is, right? Have a high blood pressure cuff now? Sir? You're not? Okay. So take your blood pressure, and then practice 5 minutes of slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. 5 minutes. And you will be shocked by what happens to your blood pressure, your essential hypertension. It'll drop like a stone. Like a stone. No toxicity, and antihypertensives. Antihypertensives are another class of drugs that are among the most toxic drugs. You know what the medical strategy for hypertension is? Something called beta blockers. Now, if you hear the word blocker after your drug, you want to be very careful. Because that means it's blocking something. Well, what is a beta blocker doing? This is the medical strategy for dealing with hypertension. What's it blocking? Your heart. It's poisoning your heart. It's shutting down your heart. Who came up with that? Will lower your blood pressure by poisoning your heart. It's called a chemical ablation. Ablate means to destroy. Oh, and if that's not bad enough, if the chemicals don't work, they'll actually stick electricity in it, to burn it, to cauterize it. Yes, this is medical protocol. On the other hand, if you recognize that the hypertension is a sign of a body in distress, and one of the major signs, major causes of the body in distress is hypoxia or low blood oxygen, you know by sitting on the couch and breathing for 5 minutes, your blood pressure will drop like a stone with no toxicity, no side effects, no waiting in line at the pharmacy, no filling out forms at the doctor's office, no doing all the things you got to do when you're a doctor. So I've been in a doctor's office forever, so I don't even know what they do these days, but whatever they do, you're not going to have to do it. You're not going to fill out insurance forms. You're not going to worry about Obamacare. You're not going to have to take poison drugs. All you got to do. When the body is in a relaxation mode, it performs better. The fastest way to get into relaxation mode is to breathe. It's very simple. It's not complicated at all. And by the way, if you don't breathe correctly, you'll make matters worse. So you've got to pay attention to how you breathe. Exhaling It's always better to give than it is to receive. You want to exhale a little more than you inhale. And you always want to breathe slowly. And you always want to breathe deeply. And most importantly, you want to go in a rhythm. The body loves rhythm. If you're trying to sleep at night, listen to a bodily rhythm. If you just listen to a rhythm, you will go into parasympathetic mode. Just listening to a rhythm. Just a metronome. Just rain. Just waves. Just your heartbeat. Just listen to your heartbeat. It will put you into what's called an alpha state. Have you ever heard this term? An alpha brainwave state where you're relaxed. It will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're breathing deeply, slowly, and most importantly, rhythmically, whatever that rhythm is for you, and you'll activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and all those little pockets of hypoxia and inflammation will start to break down, and you will know that all of the micro-inflammatory symptoms are getting better because you will feel better when you do this. You will anti-age, you will build muscle, you will fight cancer better when you do this. I've been in the skincare business for 30 years, making skincare products. Some of you guys know this. And I sold a lot of wrinkle cream in my time. But let me tell you something. Hey, Amanda. The best anti-wrinkle cream there is sitting on the couch and deep breathing for 5 minutes. And anything you can do to improve the body's ability to respirate will help activate the parasympathetic nervous system. One of the fastest ways, if you feel like you can't deep breathe or it's hard for you, you don't want to take the time, here's a quick way to automatically go into deep breathing mode. A quick way to automatically lower blood pressure. A quick way to automatically increase or activate the parasympathetic nervous system. If you're trying to make a baby, this is a quick way to become more fertile. If you're trying to have a bowel movement, this is a quick way to relieve constipation. Sit in a hot bath. Take a hot shower. Under conditions of a hot bath or a hot shower, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Why do you think everybody loves a hot bath and a hot shower? Women know this intuitively. They don't feel good. What do you do when you're a woman? You don't feel good. You go into a bathroom. And guys don't do it. But guys stay in the shower a little longer. You ever stay in the shower and you're like, you're all done, but there's always one more thing you can wash? That's because you don't want to get out. That's because for one time during the day, your parasympathetic nervous system is activated. You're fighting cancer. You're anti-aging. You're lowering your blood pressure. You're improving digestion. Every single thing we love about life is improved by sitting in a hot bath. God wants you in a hot tub. And that's why we love it in a hot tub. If you vote for me for president, everybody gets a hot tub. That's the problem here. A hot tub. Or even better, every American gets 2 massages a week. It sounds funny, but it's not. It's serious. Because you see, we're led to believe that these things are indulgent. We're led to believe that this is lazy to sit on the couch and breathe, or to sit in a hot tub, or to get a massage. It's not lazy. We're designed to thrive under conditions of relaxation. How cool is God? How cool is this? Is the divine force? It wants us to be relaxed. It wants us to be content. It wants us to be at peace. It wants us to be safe. It wants us saved. You understand? This is what this means. We have to feel at home in the universe. We have to feel connected, right? Remember at the beginning the first thing I said was, the greatest thing in the world is to form connections. The most pleasurable thing we have is to get that aha experience. Have you had this yet? Have you had this connection experience? Have you connected the dots here? Have you seen where the problem is? What you're experiencing now, if you're understanding this, are connections and aha experiences and neural interactions that will be permanent for you. If you understand what I just said, you will have just added years to your life, and you could change the lives of others, and you should. And there's more. Because oxygen is important. It's the primal imperative. But a cell also needs a clean place to do its work. A cell cannot do its business if it has accumulated toxins. And there is a lot of toxins in our environment. There's over 100,000 chemicals that exist today that didn't exist 100 years ago. But there's one toxin that we interact with over and over and over again. And this one toxin, not only do we interact with it over and over and over again throughout the day, it's chemical toxin, but we intentionally ingest this chemical toxin, and we intentionally ingest large amounts of this chemical toxin, and we intentionally ingest larger and larger amounts of this chemical toxin, and we're induced and hypnotized and compelled and conditioned and encouraged to ingest this chemical toxin over and over and over and over and over again from cradle to grave. What is this chemical toxin? Sugar. Sugar. It is not hyperbole, it's not an exaggeration. Sugar is a toxin to a cell. Sugar kills things. If you're making skincare products and you don't want to use so-called toxic preservatives, put a lot of sugar in it. Bacteria can't live in sugar. Cells can't live in large amounts of sugar. This is why the body has a system for keeping sugar out, but over the course of time, as we said earlier, this system starts to break down. So to provide the body with a clean place, or the cells to provide the cells with a clean place to do their work, clearly means not interacting with prescription drugs. And make no mistake about it, prescription drugs are that's chemical talk for cell, cytotoxic. I don't care whether there's side effects or not. Any prescription drug, if you put it in a little petri dish with a cell, you'll kill the cell. And I'm sorry to say that as a pharmacist. All drugs. And lots of other things we interact with. Chlorine, fluoride, preservatives, skincare products. There's all kinds of things that we interact with that will kill cells, but nothing that we interact with, none of those things that we interact with can we interact with the abundance that we do sugar. So keeping blood sugar under control is critical. After oxygen, it is the next most critical thing to do. Keeping your blood sugar under control. The problem is, it's not that easy because we need a little bit of sugar. And so our bodies are designed to look for sugar. In fact, because there didn't used to be a lot of sugar around. We've only had a lot of sugar around for a few hundred years. So our bodies are incredibly fine-tuned to hunt down sugar and to keep eating it. In fact, there's neurochemistry, brain chemistry that's in place that will compel us to eat sugar, and this brain chemistry that compels us to eat sugar is linked to pleasure. And so we got a problem because our brain is designed to get pleasure from sugar. And we all want pleasure. And because sugar is everywhere, it's very easy to get sugar to get pleasure. So in order to control our sugar eating behavior, we have to figure out another way to get pleasure. And this is why diets fail. And this is why nobody can get off the sugar, because it's not the sugar we're looking for, it's the pleasure. And unless you replace the pleasure, you're going to go for the sugar. You follow me? So if you want, and by the way, what does pleasure mean? Pleasure means the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what we perceive as pleasure, a lack of stress. And you've got to figure out how to activate the relaxation response if you're going to get off of sugar. You've got to figure out another way to feel like you won the lottery. Sugar tells the body you won the lottery because from a chemical perspective, that's what sugar represents. You won the lottery. So you've got to figure out another way to win the lottery if you want to deal with sugar. You've got to find a project. You've got to get a back rub. You've got to exercise. You've got to do something that will get you some pleasure, whatever that is for you. If you're married and you want to wean yourself off of sugar, tell your husband or wife, every time I want that chocolate bar, you give me a back rub. All right, for a half hour. I get a half-hour back rub. The next time, don't take advantage now. But if you did, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a foot massage or a back rub or the candy bar? You gotta figure out a way to get pleasure. We get pleasure from all kinds of things. You know, completing a project will give you pleasure. I talked to a friend of mine the other day. She told me she loves to do laundry. She didn't know this, but when she does the laundry, dopamine goes up. When we succeed in a project, we get pleasure hormones. We don't need a candy bar. Clean the garage. Bake a cake. Do something for somebody. Helping somebody increases dopamine. Being grateful increases dopamine. We're hooked on sugar because we haven't found a disruptive way to raise our dopamine to get pleasure. Another way to wean yourself off of sugar is to eat more protein. Protein increases satiety, satisfaction. Another problem with sugar represents a problem because it's heat, it's hot. Sugar burns hot, the body doesn't like hot. The big problem with sugar is it burns proteins. It especially burns blood vessel proteins, and this is why diabetics have amputations, and diabetics have blindness, and diabetics have neuropathies, because their blood vessels are being burned, they're being exploded, because the heat represents a burning. The body doesn't like heat. One of the fastest ways to cool the body down is to get heat out of the system. Sugar represents heat, but we have a word, an overall word for heat. What is heat in Spanish? Say louder. Calor. Calories. Calories are heat. One of the fastest ways to give the body our cells a nice clean place to do their work is to restrict your heat. Restrict your calories. Calorie restriction to this day is the only tried and true known way of increasing longevity. Google caloric restriction in cancer. Calorie restriction will actually help build muscle. Calorie restriction is anti-aging. Calorie restriction is pro-healing and anti-disease. How much does it cost you to restrict your calories? Nothing. You can make money. Fasting is in the same category, by the way. Intermittent fasting, fasting in between. All of these are ways to reduce toxicity in the body. Calorie restriction is very difficult to people because dopamine, pleasure hormone, is linked to calories. So we have to find another way to access dopamine. Finding another thing to do, finding another project, something you can complete, helping somebody. The third point on our scale of cellular needs, after toxification, or a clean place for a cell to do its work, after oxygen, is nutrition. Cells need food. Cells have a name for the food that they need. We call this food something. Cells, we eat hamburgers, and we eat steak, and we eat broccoli, and we eat eggs, but cells don't eat broccoli and eggs and steak. Cells eat what we call the mighty 90 essential nutrients. That's what a cell eats. The mighty 90 essential nutrients are the menu a cell eats from. Anybody ever asks you, what are the mighty 90 essential nutrients? Now you know. They are what a cell eats. And they represent the third of the only three things a cell needs to do its business. And because all disease is cell disease, nutrition, the mighty 90 essential nutrients, represent 1/3 of everything you need to fight disease. Wow. From a physical level. Remember, smell, spiritual, mental, emotional. But from a physical level, there's only three things a cell needs. And all disease is cell disease, so there's only three things we need to do if we want to address all disease. You need to breed the cell, you need to keep toxicity out of the cell, particularly heat and sugar. And thirdly, you need to feed the cell the mighty 90 essential nutrients throughout the day. Now, nutrition is a very complicated subject, and I do you may have you guys seen my YouTubes? If you've seen me on YouTube, Google Pharmacist Bed and the 8 chapters of good nutrition, if you haven't seen it already. And I talk about the 8 different chapters, called the 8 chapters of good nutrition. Nutrition Right Handbook, there are 8 chapters, and I don't have time to go through it now, but I'll give you just the highlights of it. The highlights of the 8 chapters of good nutrition are protein, fat, carbohydrates, fiber, water, vitamins, minerals, accessory nutrients. Things like enzymes and probiotics. These are the 8 chapters of good nutrition, and they're divided into 2 sections. Macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients means big nutrition. Micronutrients means small nutrition. Your macronutrients need lots of them. You need grams or ounces of them. Micronutrients, you need tiny little trace amounts. In fact, macronutrients, with the exception of fiber and water, your proteins, your fats, and carbohydrates, represent energy. They are how the body gets its fire. They're the logs, if you will, that you put in the fireplace. The protein, the fats, and the carbohydrates are largely used as logs on a fire. The micronutrients, the vitamins and the minerals, or the magical pixie dust that activates the whole thing. And I say magical pixie dust, I mean it, because nobody knows how it happens. The micronutrients turn the logs of protein, fat, and carbohydrates into fire. You need the logs, and you need the magical pixie dust. You need them both. The logs provide the energy, the magical pixie dust activates the whole thing, and you get a flame, and this is what runs the body. And in nature, all natural foods have the exact proper proportion of magical pixie dust to logs. In fact, we have a term for a food that has just the right amount of magical pixie dust with the logs. What do we call that kind of food? You know? Special kind of food that has the magical pixie dust. Balance that close, not quite. A BTT? No, not quite. We call it a whole food. A whole food is a food that has the exact proportion of magical pixie dust to logs. And what we've done over the last 200 years, being the geniuses that we are as human beings, is we figured out how to divorce the two. How to create a food supply that had lots of logs, but no pixie dust. Lots of energy, potential energy, but no magical pixie dust to turn that into energy. And when the body doesn't like high energy, the body doesn't like energy is heat. The body doesn't like this. So the body has developed a system for taking all that energy, which it can't use because there's no magical pixie dust, and protecting it and stashing it away. You know what we call that system? We call it our fat butts. That's what we call that system. And our fat and our body weight is the result of lots of logs without the pixie dust to activate it. Even worse, when we ingest lots of logs without the pixie dust to turn on and activate the flame, the body's not satisfied because it can't make energy. It's got the potential energy, the logs, the potential energy, but it's not the magical pixie dust. So you can eat all the logs you want, but if you don't have the pixie dust, the body's not going to be happy, and it's going to send you out for more food. And you're going to go out and get more logs without pixie dust. And then you're going to eat those logs, and those logs are going to get stashed away, and the body's not going to be satisfied. It's going to send you out for more food. And this keeps happening. This was Dr. Wallach's brilliant insight. He didn't call logs and pixie dust. Nobody's ever going to call logs and pixie dust, by the way, except for us in this room now. But that's what his brilliant insight was. He saw that people were getting lots of food and no micronutrients. And remember, this is a situation that has gotten worse over the last couple thousand years, but really bad over the last 100 years, and even really, really, really bad over the last 50 years. We're all subsisting on food that has lots of logs, but no micronutrients, but no magical pixie dust, which is very important information for you because it tells you that if you get the magical pixie dust, you'll be able to make more fire, you won't need as much logs. This is why people lose weight when they're on micronutrient supplementation like the Beyond Tangerine. This is why you feel satisfied. And by the way, this is why you always want to drink your BTT with your food. You'll have the magical pixie dust to help you activate the energy from the logs, from the protein and the fat and the carbohydrates. Now, all of the macronutrient categories, I don't have time to talk about them as much as I'd like to, they're all important. But real briefly, the most important is protein. In fact, protein is what makes us us, and it makes you, and me, and you, and me, and all of us are individuals based on our proteins. It's what makes a frog different from a bee. It would make a person different from a dog. It's what makes everything individual is the proteins. And proteins are unbelievably important, and because they're so expensive, as important as they are, they're the one food group that nobody gets anywhere near enough of. Especially if you're traveling, or especially if you're busy, or especially if you don't have a lot of money. So making sure you're getting enough protein should be job number one in terms of the macronutrients. The body can get energy from protein, and unfortunately, for diabetics or for people trying to lose weight, the body, because protein can get energy from protein can get turned into fat. Well, this is the problem with the paleo diet. For anybody who's doing the paleo diet to lose weight, you should understand that protein gets turned into fat very efficiently. Protein throws off blood sugar very efficiently. So the trick to understanding how to utilize protein in foods and protein in supplements is to make sure that you are doing something with that protein. Namely work or exercise or something to build. If you're going to do protein, you want to make sure you're in building mode. That's why the best time to do your protein is when you come home from the gym. That's why if you're not working out or you're sedentary, you want to be careful with the amount of protein that you're doing. This is why sometimes you'll hear too much protein can be hard on the kidneys and too much protein can create problems. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about getting protein without the body needing that much protein. So protein intake has to be reflective of the amount of work you're doing, the amount of energy you're expending. Fats are super high energy. They're nature's densest source of energy. In fact, there's twice as much energy in fat as there is in protein or there is in carbohydrates for that matter. So fat needs to be respected as a source of energy, and indeed, it is a powerful source of energy. It's so powerful that there are cultures that live on fat, whale blubber, and seal fat. In fact, there's a really cool diet that some of you may have heard of that is a 80% or 70% or even 90% fat diet, and you get healthier. And if you have seizure disorders, your seizure disorders go away. And if you're on this special high-fat diet, not only do your seizure disorders go away, but you build muscle faster. If you're an athletic, if you're an athlete, you perform better. If you have cancer, you can support your body's ability to fight cancer. If you have Alzheimer's disease, your Alzheimer's disease can improve with this high-fat diet. Who knows what it's called?
Ketogenic.
The ketogenic diet. Can we do a video on that?
No, but we should.
Yeah. I do videos with Amanda, by the way. You guys all know Amanda Ridout back there. Have you seen our videos?
Yes.
Awesome. There was a guy named Stephenson who he lived with the Eskimos back in the late 19th century. They got all fascinated. Most of the world had been discovered, except for one part of the world had not been discovered. In the late 19th century, most of the planets had been mapped out except for one area, and that was the Arctic. And so explorers went up to the Arctic starting in the mid-19th century, the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. They were fascinated with the Arctic. Have you ever seen pictures of the Arctic? It's amazing up there. Well, when they got up there, they saw that there were people living there. And they couldn't believe it. And they started to study these people, they're technically called the Inuit, but we call them the Eskimos. And they started to study what these people were doing, and they noticed that these people were eating fat. And lots of it, because nothing grows in the Arctic, so they spent like 10 months a year just eating fat and some whale meat. And they were fine. They had no heart disease. They had energy. They could survive the cold. And there was a guy named Stephenson, who was, I think he was from New York actually, and he went up, he lived with them, and he lived like they did for like a year and a half. He lived on just fat and a little bit of seal meat. You ever heard of this guy Stephenson? Famous story. And he came back to the United States, and they were just starting to understand nutrition there. They were just in the late 1800s. We were just starting to understand proteins and fats and carbohydrates. And he came down maybe this might have been the early 1900s. And he came down and he said, "Guess what, you guys? I just ate fat and I'm fine." And they said, "You are crazy, Stephenson. There's no way you could have done this." And they actually forced him to sit in a room and just eat nothing but fat. They did this at a mental hospital in New York, and they thought he was crazy. So they put him in this mental hospital, they watched him, and for a year and a half, this guy just ate fat with a little bit of protein, no vegetables. And he was fine. He had all kinds of energy, and his blood pressure went down, he lost weight. They couldn't believe it. They thought this was the craziest thing ever. And of course, nobody said anything about it, because that would throw off all the conventional wisdom that said you had to have vegetables, and you had to have all these other nutrients. And so nobody knew about it, but it did get published in a paper. And scientists started to study what was going on in the blood that was creating this kind of situation where you could eat a lot of fat and just be healthy, and you'd have to have vegetables. And it turns out that when you eat a lot of fat and you don't eat carbs, this is the key. If you eat lots of fat without having carbs, your body becomes a fat burner. One of the problems we have as a culture is we don't give our body a chance to burn the fat. So we're all sugar burners. And the fat just sits there. When you eat lots of fat in the presence of very, very low carb, your body produces these super high energy chemicals that are incredibly helpful for your brain, incredibly helpful for your heart, incredibly helpful for your immune system, incredibly helpful for your muscles. These little chemicals, these high-powered energy chemicals that your brain loves, and that your heart loves, and that your immune system loves, and that your muscles love, these little high-powered energy compounds are called ketones. They're called ketones. And the diet that allows you to produce these high-energy compounds that help your brain, that help your immune system, that help your muscles, and that help your heart is called the ketogenic diet. And I'm going to be doing a talk at the ketogenic diet at convention. If you guys want to come, we'll talk a lot about the ketogenic diet. But for now, understand that the fat in the presence of low carbohydrate is an incredibly important energy tool. And that is especially true about saturated fat. The kind of fat that if you grew up like me in the 60s and 70s, you know for sure is something you don't want to eat. Well, guess what? Wrong. It's something you definitely want to eat. Saturated fat is powerful, powerful energy. Meat fat, lard, butter, dairy fat, powerful sources of energy. And eating these kinds of fat in the presence of low carb will help you drop weight like a stone. It's one of the most powerful ways to lose weight is the ketogenic diet, eating lots of fat. Now, if you tell that to a dietitian, or a nutritionist, or even a doctor, they'll tell you you're crazy. Just look it up. Just look up the chemistry. Just look how it works. Fat is your friend under conditions of low carb and under conditions of healthy fat. By healthy fat, I mean fat that is not oxidized, which is another word for saying rancid. Rancid fat is definitely not your friend, but unrancid or unoxidized fat, natural fat, is incredibly important for health. There's also two special kinds of fats that are so important for the body, we say that they're essential. In the world of nutrition, what does the word essential mean? Oh, say it louder. Required. Some people will say that the body can't make it, but it's not really. You want to think of it like air. Air is essential. There are nutrients that are essential. There's two particular fats that are essential, and they're called omega-6 and omega-3. And they're incredibly important, but because they're liquid, they're unstable. So you have to be very careful with your omega-6s and omega-3s, which is why supplementing is so handy, especially our ultimate EFAs and EFA+, because they're in a capsule, a gel capsule. They're protected from instability. You can tell you have a EFA deficiency. One of the ways you can tell you have an EFA deficiency is if you have dry skin. Do you know, I've been in the skincare business now for 32 years, I'm going to tell you something. No human being should ever have dry skin. Ever. Ever, ever. And I don't know if you're going to raise your hand when I say this, but I know almost everybody in this room has this. So how many people in this room have dry skin? Alright, well, if you're like most Americans, this is an average sampling, 99% of you have dry skin. Unless you're using a moisturizer. A moisturizer doesn't do anything for your dry skin. It's one of the biggest scams going. Because when you put a moisturizer on your skin, I'm going to shock people who are selling moisturizers. I really want to bleep this out of the tape. Just tell it like it is. I'm like Donald Trump. Just tell it like it is here. Alright? You put a moisturizer on your skin, and you go, oh, I'm moisturized. No, you're slickerized. You haven't done any moisturization. You put a layer of wax and oil on there, and you think it's moisture. It's not moisture. Moisture comes from underneath. Moisture comes from what are called moisture factors, and those moisture factors are stimulated by essential fatty acids. Dry skin should always be regarded as an EFA deficiency. In fact, any skin problem, particularly eczema and psoriasis, should be regarded as an essential fatty acid issue. In fact, everybody, oh, another thing. Menstrual problems and PMS issues with women should also be regarded as an EFA deficiency, essential fatty acid deficiency. Essential fatty acids are the molecules of inflammation and anti-inflammation. The body controls anti-inflammation and inflammation with special chemicals, and those chemicals come from essential fatty acids. So essential fatty acids are your natural Motrin. Essential fatty acids are your natural aspirins, and should be not surprising that Motrin and aspirin work by affecting essential fatty acid chemicals, essential fatty acid derivatives. That's how they work. So if you want to get off your Motrin, get on EFAs. If you're taking Motrin for arthritis or naproxen or Indocin or any of the drugs they recommend for arthritis, that's a sign you need more EFAs. PMS issues, menstrual cramps. What do women crave when they're having menstrual cramps, by the way? Fat. Fatty foods. And that's another sign that you have an EFA deficiency, is craving for fatty foods. The third, and I wish I could spend more time on this, but we're just running out of time. The third category of macronutrients is carbohydrates, and they are important, but not as important as we've been told. How many of you grew up with the idea of carb loading? Remember carb loading? That is a bunch of wacko information if ever there wasn't. You definitely don't want to be carb loading, but there is one class of carbs that are incredibly important that you can't possibly eat enough of it. You started at night, eat them all day long until the time you went to bed at night. What is that kind of carb? It's the most important of all the foods we eat.
Vegetables.
No, it's a food. Say it louder. Vegetables. Vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. And you notice I did not say fruits. Right? You can tell whether a nutritionist or a dietitian understands chemistry if they say fruits and vegetables as if it was one phrase. The problem with fruits and vegetables is fruits are, botanically speaking, a fruit is a womb. A fruit is designed to birth a seed. And the stuff around the seed is nature's way of feeding the seed. So when the seed grows, it has lots of stuff to eat. Seeds are growing fast and they use lots of sugar. So nature has a system in place where there'll be a seed that's going to grow, lots of sugar around it, and then a protective coating on the outside, and that's what's called a fruit. A fruit is seed in the middle, sugar in the outside, and all coated with a protective coating. The problem when we hear fruits and vegetables, we say eat all your fruits and vegetables, people like hear fruits and vegetables, right? That's how we hear it. So we're like, sure, I can have my fruits and vegetables, 8 servings, no problem. Watermelon, banana, honeydew, cantaloupe, I'll have all my fruits and vegetables, right? McDonald's has an ad, and it says you have your 8 servings of fruits and vegetables, they give you a fruit salad. Because remember, we're hardwired to find sugar. We find sugar irresistible. If you want to eat fruits, the medicine is on the outside. The good stuff is in the peel, and the seed for that matter. The seed is so good that it's actually powerful medicine. In fact, you ever hear how they tell you not to eat seeds? There's anti-cancer medicine, Laetrile, that comes from almond seed, almond pits, or no, apricot pits. The seeds are powerful medicine. In fact, the seeds are so powerful that if you eat them, you are in for some problems. In fact, we all eat seeds, most of us eat seeds every day, and then we wonder why we're so sick. Well, we're paying the price for eating the seeds. See, nature doesn't want its seeds eaten. So it has devised a system that would punish anybody dumb enough to eat the seeds. It puts powerful stuff in the seeds that will kill you if you eat enough of it. Luckily, it's in tiny little amounts, but it can still make you very sick. In fact, one of these toxins that are found in seeds that is a huge problem, which you guys have all heard of, even though you haven't heard it put this way. One of these toxins is responsible for some serious health challenges, and most of us are eating it every day. See, there's a type of seed that our culture has come to depend on for its very existence. There's a type of seed that all great cultures have come to depend on for their very existence. There's a type of seed that made the Sumerian Empire. Maybe the Sumerian Empire is the first empire in recorded history. The Sumerian Empire existed in Mesopotamia, in the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, that area. It's the first great empire. By the way, it appeared out of the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows how that happened. But this is the first empire, and it was an empire that grew because of seed. The next empire, the Persian Empire, and the Babylonian Empire, and the Roman Empire, and the Chinese Empire, and the British Empire, and the American Empire, all became empires because of the seed. This seed that we all eat almost every day, if we're like most people, although this room very possibly not, We call this seed grain. That's what grain is. And all the great empires in the history of the world were empires of grain. There's a really cool book about this called Empires of Food, if you ever want to read it. It talks about the relationship between grain and empire. Because seeds are loaded with things that make you less able to function. Because nature doesn't want you to have, nature doesn't want you to eat those seeds. So it turns out that all seeds, but particularly grains, are loaded with anti-nutrients. One of the worst of these anti-nutrients is something called gluten. Gluten is nature's way of punishing anybody dumb enough to eat it. Yes! That's what gluten is. It's a phytotoxin. It's something that seeds makes, that nature makes, so you won't eat the seeds. Animals don't do it because they'll get a bellyache. We do it because nobody told us this. So, by the way, see, this is how smart the divine force is. Their seeds, the divine force has produced seeds that will actually make chemicals that will kill or will prevent the birth of animals several generations ahead. Birth control. There are seeds that produce birth control for animals. They're called phytoestrogens. Have you heard that term? Phytoestrogens, plant estrogens. Plant estrogens are not there so human beings don't have to have hot flashes. Plant estrogens are there because the rabbit that eats the seed won't have any more rabbits. How smart is that? It's like thinking a generation ahead. These phytonutrients, these anti-nutrients that are found in plants are located in the seeds, and this is what makes fruits something that you want to respect. Vegetables don't have this problem. Vegetable phytonutrients are spread throughout the vegetable, and because they're spread throughout the vegetable, they're dispersed, they're not concentrated, so you can eat them more effectively. But you can still have to be respectful of vegetables also. Many people have reactions to vegetables. Again, because the medicine is spread throughout the vegetable, the medicine is the stuff that we're not supposed to eat. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so when we eat these phytonutrients, these plant chemicals that are supposed to prevent the animal from eating them, when we eat the broccoli, we eat the Brussels sprouts, we eat the tomatoes, we eat the plants that contain these, our body makes anti-cancer compounds. It makes survival compounds. Our liver gets stronger. The body likes a tiny little bit of poison, a very tiny little bit of poison, very, very tiny little bit of poison, because it produces anti-poison in response. And this is why vegetables are so important. This is why the petals of fruits are so important. This is why seeds can be helpful if you do it correctly. The micronutrients come in two varieties, or three varieties, but two essential varieties. We call them vitamins. Your vitamins come in two classes, water-soluble and fat-soluble. Your water-soluble nutrients are water-soluble. They dissolve in water, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Your water-soluble nutrients, vitamin B, or what's known as the B complex, and vitamin C, and also a class of minerals, which are electrically active, and they're called electrolytes, are urinated out of our body. We lose them very quickly. And these electrical nutrients are very important for sparking the logs, for giving the logs energy. The B vitamins, the electrolytes, the electrical nutrients, vitamin C, which we urinate out whenever we drink water, are energy sparking vitamins, and when you don't have enough of these substances, you feel sluggish, you feel tired. These electrical nutrients are also important for the blood sugar system, so when you don't have enough of these nutrients, your blood sugar system gets messed up. You don't extract energy from sugar as effectively. Long story short, when you don't have your B vitamins, and you don't have your vitamin C, and you don't have your electrolytes, your electricity starts to slow down. And your body doesn't work as effectively. And because we're all drinking water and going to the bathroom, unless we're replacing our electrical nutrients on a regular basis, we're not going to be able to operate electrically at peak efficiency. That means everybody. If I could tell you something that you could put in your water that was electrical, that contained the electrical nutrients that would run your brain and your immune system and your digestive system and give you energy and help your blood sugar system work correctly, do you think that would be something you'd want to do?
Yeah.
If I could tell you that I could give you a product that you could sell to your friends and your neighbors that contain the electrical nutrients that everybody's deficient in, that help your blood sugar system work, that help you get energy from logs, that help your brain work, that help your immune system work, that help your digestive system work, that help the skin work more effectively, help the skin, make the skin more resilient. And you could sell this product, and you could have a business that was built around this product. That's something you'd want to do? Yes. Right? Wouldn't that be cool? Yes. Well, guess what? That's what the Beyond Tang Tangerine is. The Beyond Tang Tangerine is electrical nutrients that we lose out of our body every time we go to the bathroom. Especially, by the way, if we're drinking lots of water. Everybody drinking, it's very important to hydrate and drink more water, but if you're not doing your electrical nutrients with it, you are guaranteed going to be deficient in the B complex, deficient in potassium and calcium and magnesium and the other electrolytes, and deficient in vitamin C, because every time you urinate, you lose them. So we got a product here, this Beyond Tang Tangerine, that's important for everybody who goes to the bathroom. That's a pretty cool product, right? Now, you can prove this to yourself, because remember, these electrical nutrients, the body's an electrical system, the electrical nutrients give you a spark. They help you derive energy from your macronutrients. This is why I said, by the way, you want to always drink your ETT with your meals, especially if you're doing junk food, or especially if you're doing meals that don't have the appropriate balance of macro and micro. But you can tell us that you can experience one of the great gifts of the human body is the sicker we are, the faster we turn it around, the more weight we need to lose, the faster the pounds drop off, and the more nutritionally deficient we are, the faster the body sucks up those nutrients like a dry sponge sucks up water. You can prove this to yourself first thing in the morning, because first thing in the morning, we tend to be deficient in our electrical nutrients. If you've gone 8 hours without your electrical nutrients, or however long you've been sleeping, your body's been doing its electrical work, you're going to be deficient. If you've gone to the bathroom once or twice, it's even worse. So almost everybody wakes up in the morning deficient in their electrical nutrients, which is why the first thing we do when we get up in the morning is go get a cup of coffee, which gives us quick energy because it makes the adrenal gland, it duplicates the hormones of the adrenal glands, your emergency glands, but it doesn't do anything for your micronutrient deficiency. In fact, because it's a diuretic, it makes it even worse. Which, of course, then we go and get more coffee. You can prove this to yourself tomorrow morning by having a big, tall glass, if you're not already doing it, of Beyond Tang Tangerine in the morning. Have you been doing this? Yeah. Do you notice the energy you get when you do the Beyond Tang Tangerine first thing in the morning? What do you think that is? You're giving yourself the electrical nutrients in a liquid format that goes right to work. A second class of nutrients is your fat-soluble nutrients. In addition to your EFAs, you have 4 fatty vitamins, vitamins D, E, A, and K. The best way to get your fatty vitamins is from fatty foods. Nature puts all the fats together in organ meats, in fish, in regular meat for that matter, in coconuts and avocado, especially organ meats and dairy and eggs. Organ meats and dairy and eggs are powerful sources of these fat-soluble nutrients. While the water-soluble nutrients give you spark, the fat-soluble nutrients give you long-term survival. They help you build muscle. They help your brain grow. They help keep you going in times of duress and times of stress. They're for long term. The water-soluble nutrients are for quick spark. The fatty nutrients are for the long term, for anti-aging. The fat-soluble nutrients are best sourced from omega-3, omega fatty acids like the ultimate EFAs, and fatty foods, especially dairy and eggs and organ meats. And then your third class of nutrients is your trace accessory nutrients, and there's lots of them. The 2 most important ones, at least for our purposes here in this room, are digestive enzymes and probiotics. Your ultimate enzymes and your nightly essence. We have lots of probiotic products, but the nightly essence remains my favorite one because it's multiple strains of bacteria. These probiotic bacteria replace the bacteria that should have been in the gut when we were born. These probiotic bacteria replace the bacteria that are killed off every day when we drink tap water. These probiotic bacteria replace the bacteria that should be in our gut but are destroyed every time we eat preserved food, or we drink fluoridated water, or we take antibiotics. And we're all taking antibiotics because it's in the water. But if you take antibiotics prescription-wise, these nightly essence, I'm talking about the nightly essence, probiotics replace bacteria in the gut. The second accessory nutrient is the ultimate enzymes. Now, probably everybody in this room knows that digestive enzymes are important for for digestion, obviously, but guess what you may not know? They're also incredible blood thinners. I love multifunctional ingredients. I love multifunctional products. Your ultimate enzymes are quite obviously, by the name, they're digestive enzymes. They help you digest your food, but they also thin your blood. They also relieve inflammatory pain. They also relieve inflammation. They bust inflammation. It's pretty multifunctional. They're pain relievers. They improve circulation. They're anti-inflammatory. If you're going into surgery, your ultimate enzymes taken 2 weeks before surgery and a couple weeks after surgery on an empty stomach will improve the results of your surgery. Will help you heal faster. A third multifunctional product, which I love, are the glucogel caps. The glucogel caps are probably the most multifunctional of all of the longevity products because the glucogel caps help you build something called connective tissue. Connective tissue is 25% of your body. All of the signs of aging are based in connective tissue. You have 4 kinds of stuff. Tissue is a fancy biological way of saying stuff. Our body is made up of 4 kinds of stuff. Tissue sounds intimidating. Stuff. Our body is made of 4 types of tissue or 4 types of stuff. It's made up of a central core, which is like steak, beef. You guys know that beef has 2 major components in it. Well, that beef, that steak, those 2 major components form the core of all higher animals, including us. And that beef or that steak is made up of something called muscle tissue, that's the flesh that we love to eat, and connective tissue that holds the whole thing in place. And then there's electrical wiring that's run through the muscle tissue and the connective tissue that makes the whole thing, brings the whole thing to life. We call that nervous tissue. And the whole thing is candy-coated with something called epithelial tissue, which also makes up your eyes and your glands. That's the whole body. There's 4 types of stuff. Epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and connective tissue. But the large bulk of the body, you ever see the bodies exhibit? Anybody know about the bodies exhibit? Where they show you the dead bodies, but they're all peeled off. That is the large bulk of all our bodies, 80% or so of our bodies. It's a combination of muscle tissue and connective tissue. And all of the job of the connective tissue is obviously, the name says, you hear from the name, is to connect everything together, to glue everything together. In fact, the major kind of connective tissue is called collagen. That's essentially a synonym for connective tissue. And colla means glue in Latin. So the connective tissue hangs everything in place. As we get older, our connective tissue breaks down. You ever make a jello mold with fruit inside? Ever know how you have a jello mold with fruit inside? You can think of the jello as being connective tissue. And you can think of the fruits inside as being all of your organs. And this is how we're built. Our heart and our spleen and our liver and our pancreas are all sitting in the connective and muscle tissue, connective tissue basically, the way pineapples and cantaloupe and oranges and apples are sitting in a jello mold. And as we get older, our jello breaks down. And our watermelon drops. Basically, that's what happens on the inside. That's called a prolapse. You ever hear the term prolapse? That's what a prolapse is when your watermelon drops. Except you'll call that your bladder prolapse, your uterus prolapse, your rectum prolapse. Various part of your body prolapse because the jello's dissolving. And that's the connective tissue on the inside. The connective tissue on the outside that holds us upright, that dissolves too. And then you start to walk like this. You start to get hunched over. Or if the connective tissue is located in your joints start to contract. And that starts to hurt. You call that arthritis. These are all the signs of aging. This is the way we age. Our connective tissue shrivels up. Our connective tissue breaks down. Hernias are when organs, parts of your body poke through the connective tissue. Your blood vessels are made up of connective tissue. So when your connective tissue weakens, your blood vessels will start to weaken, and the body will try to patch up those little weak spots with cholesterol. And then your brilliant doctor will say, oh, I got too much cholesterol. We got to poison that cholesterol system, but there's too much of that bad cholesterol, right? Completely oblivious to the fact that your connective tissue is dissolving. And you can stop the cholesterol all you want, but then if you haven't corrected the problem with the connective tissue, it's not going to help your heart disease, and that's why people on statin drugs still have heart disease. Connective tissue also keeps the surface of your skin on top where it should be. Without the connective tissue, it starts to crater. What do we call that? Wrinkles. Your bones are made of connective tissue. When your connective tissue starts to dissolve, your bones get weaker. That's called osteoporosis. These are all the hallmark signs of connective tissue degradation. This is how we age, and ultimately how we die. It turns out that when we eat substances that are made up of connective tissue, our body reads that as a sign that it needs to make connective tissue. This is very fascinating and something that we can all leverage, we can all take advantage of. When we eat little pieces of connective tissue, and those little pieces of connective tissue go into the blood, the body reads that and says, oh my goodness, there's some broken connective tissue because there's little pieces of connective tissue floating around. That means we better start building the connective tissue. The body reads pieces of connective tissue as a sign that it needs to make connective tissue. And if all these diseases and aging itself is an issue of connective tissue, and the body reads connective tissue in the blood as a sign it needs to make connective tissue, do you think you want to be eating connective tissue components? You better believe you do. Any connective tissue components will turn on your connective tissue production, and because aging is in many ways a connective tissue defect, eating connective tissue is anti-aging. Eating connective tissue components also tells the body that it needs to fight something, because when it sees little pieces of connective tissue, it thinks that there's been a battle going on. So the immune system is activated by little pieces of connective tissue. Eating little pieces of connective tissue turn on your body's defense system, and eating little pieces of connective tissue turn on your body's building system. Do you think you want to eat little pieces of connective tissue? You've got to believe you do. And one of the best all-time great ways to get connective tissue in your system, to build your connective tissue, to build your immune system, one of the easiest ways to eat connective tissue is chicken soup with the bones. The cartilage in the bones, when they're liquefied in the soup, go into your system and turn on your body's immune system and connective tissue building system. This is why chicken soup is nature's penicillin. That's why they tell you to eat chicken soup when you have a cold. Because the little pieces of connective tissue that are now in the soup that have been dissolved in there turn on the body's immune system. They fight cancer. Anybody ever read a book called Why Sharks Don't Get Cancer? Did you ever read that book, Why Sharks Don't Get Cancer? Remember it came out in the 80s? Did you read it? You're laughing over there. Okay. Did you read it? Yeah, why sharks don't get... Did you have an aha experience, by the way? Have you guys had any aha experiences yet? When you connect the dots, that's what I want to have happen here. When you eat chicken soup, you eat little pieces of connective tissue. They turn on your body's defenses. Cartilage, sharks are nature's, or almost all cartilage, as it turns out. So sharks don't get cancers, according to this book, because they have lots of connective tissue. Cartilage is connective tissue. Connective tissue also turns on your body's growth and repair. One of the all-time great connective tissue components is something called glucosamine. And one of the great connective tissue building, connective tissue raw materials is something called gelatin. Gelatin and glucosamine together are connective tissue building blocks that tell the body it's time to build connective tissue. Gelatin and glucosamine are connective tissue building blocks that tells the body it's time to build connective tissue, whether that connective tissue is in your internal structure, like jello, or whether that connective tissue is your bones, or whether that connective tissue is your blood vessels, or whether that connective tissue is the collagen in your skin. If you could find a product that was glucosamine and gelatin, do you think you'd want to take that? That would be a product that would keep you from wrinkling, that would keep your blood vessels strong, that would improve the cartilage in your joints, that would make your bones strong, that would support your immune system, that would keep your watermelon from dropping. That's a heck of a product, right? That's multifunctional, and all it is glucosamine and gelatin. Where can I get glucosamine and gelatin? The Glucogel caps! And as a bonus, it's one of the cheaper products that we sell. Alright, So we got the 8 chapters of good nutrition. You've got the core ideas underneath all degenerative disease. You've got defense. You've got the parasympathetic nervous system. There's only 3 things the cell needs. There's only 3 ways the cell breaks down: starvation, suffocation, toxification. There's only 3 things the cell needs. It needs oxygen, it needs a clean place to do its work, it needs the mighty 9 essential nutrients. When I said at the beginning of my talk here 2 hours ago, I said, I want you guys to have an aha experience. I want you guys to see the leverage, the power of leverage, the leveraging power of simple ideas underneath complex ideas, of simplexity, so that you can do this yourself. Underneath all chronic degenerative diseases, no matter what they are just 3 things that you need to work on: oxygenation, a clean place for a cell to do its work, and nutrition. It's the only 3 things you need to do. From a systems perspective, you need to relax the body. Relax the body. Relax the body. That's what oxygen does. That's what massage does. That's what peace of mind does. That's what a hot tub does. That's what Reiki and meditation and yoga, whatever you want to think of. Anything you can do to relax your body. Progressive contraction and relaxation can relax the body. You can relax the body, by the way, by just looking out of the sides of your eyes. You can look, most of the time when we're looking at each other, we're looking through the center of our eyes. That activates the sympathetic nervous system. When you look out of the sides of your peripheral vision, your body will relax. 2 of the most important places where we contract, where our bodies become tense, are in the face. Especially the masseter muscle, which is located here. Everybody know what the masseter muscle, which is one of the body's strongest muscles. If you want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system fast, relax your face. There's a horrible disease people get from contracting this muscle here called TMJ. You hear this? Awful, awful, awful curse. All you got to do is relax the muscles in the face. These are the relaxation techniques that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Make sure you're using your mighty 9 essential nutrients, practicing caloric restriction, intermittent fasting. Have I said anything complicated? Have I said anything that requires a medical degree? Have I said anything scientific and hard to understand? And it's just common sense, really, when it comes right down to it. Because you see, at the end of the day, we're not sick, we're starving. And we do not need to be fixed, we need to be fed. So what I hope you can do now, if I succeeded here, you can take this information and you can share it and you can transmit it. People have no idea. This has been a revelatory experience for you. It can be a revelatory experiences for your friends and your family and your neighbor. And don't be shy about spreading it. Don't be shy about talking about it. You can do this as well as I can. Go, if you like this and if this is interesting to you, listen to the bright side, do your own research, rent a room in a library and share it with people. And you can have a business with it as well, because this is what longevity is all about. Yeah, we've got awesome products. We've got great products, but it's really about spreading the message. This is what made Dr. Wallach great. I love the Beyond Tangy Tangerine and the Healthy Start Pak and the Ultimate EFAs and the Glucogel Caps and the Nightly Essence. I love them all, but what made Dr. Wallach great is that he went out and he shared these ideas. And he stood up on the stage and he said, people, you don't have to be sick. There are solutions. And if you like this idea, you owe it to your neighbors and your friends and your family to share these ideas, and bonus on top of it, you can make a pretty darn nice living doing it. If it appeals to you, talk to Jan if you're not already doing it. Thank you guys very much. You've been awesome. All right, so scleroderma and rheumatoid arthritis are 2 types of a special kind of disease. What's the name of that kind of disease? Anybody know?
Autoimmune.
Autoimmune disease. And this is a serious, serious health problem. There's some 50 million Americans, it's a lot of people, 1 out of 6 people, 1 out of 7 people, who have autoimmune diseases. And what matters with an autoimmune disease, scleroderma, by the way, is an autoimmune disease of the connective tissue. That means everything, basically. And rheumatoid arthritis is also an autoimmune disease of the connective tissue, the joints. And very often they occur together. And it doesn't matter that they have 2 different names. Diagnosis is a scam and has nothing to do with healing and everything to do with putting you in the computer. Diagnosis has nothing to do with healing and everything to do with your doctor going to a special book and seeing how he has to treat you. Diagnosis is a lazy shortcut. And it doesn't serve us at all because it doesn't matter. Because the fact that the body is breaking down at the connective tissue level doesn't matter if it's in the skin, or it's in the joints, or it's in the blood vessels, or it's anywhere else. It matters that it's occurring, not where it's occurring. So all your friend has, we're going to simplify it right now, we can tell you how to deal with it, but we just simplified it. Her body's immune system is attacking itself. Auto means self. Immunity means the defense system. The defense system is turning on itself. So this is a conundrum. This is a great mystery and nobody knows what to do. And the only thing they can do to deal with autoimmune disease in brilliant medical fashion is shut down the immune system. And you know what? It works, because if you shut down the immune system, you can't have the immune systems. But who in their right mind would think that's a good idea to shut down the Defense Department? It's not. It's a very bad idea. This is why the drugs that shut down the Defense Department, like prednisone, are among the most deadly drugs. I know it's saying that, but there's a lot of most deadly drugs. And that's near the top of the list. So, if you're not a doctor, you're just an ordinary intelligent person. Didn't mean that doctors weren't intelligent, but if you're just ordinary, if you're not a doctor, you're just an ordinary person, right? And you have a problem where your Defense Department is activated, what would be the logical thing to ask yourself if you want to get rid of the problem? Say it louder.
Why is it being defensive?
Why is it being defensive? Now remember, you're just an ordinary person. You're not a medical person, because medical people are trained to think a certain way. No knock on people. It's the system. The logical thing is to say, why is it being, what's attacking it? Why is it hyperactive? Well, the only thing, whenever you have an immune problem, the only problem is something is getting into the body inappropriately to act. It's the only way the immune system is activated. It's not activated by pixie dust that's sprinkled on your head. Something is somehow getting into the body. Something is getting into the system. This is just common sense. Is this common sense, you guys? If you have your Defense Department activated, your logical question is, what is it being activated against? The next logical question is, how is something getting in? Well, there's only three ways something gets into the system. You can either inject it, like through a vaccine or through IV drug use. You can inhale it if you're working in a coal mine, or you've got lots of mold. Maybe it's very rare, but for the most part, how do things get into the system? You eat it. And if you want to hear the mechanism, it's very interesting, but you don't need to know. But here's the mechanism: you eat a food, it goes into the blood inappropriately through what's called a leaky gut, and the gut becomes leaky because of all the reasons I talked about, how the digestive system breaks down. Stuff gets into the blood, that stuff starts to float around, it comes to rest in the thyroid, it comes to rest in the connective tissue, it comes to rest in the kidney, it comes to rest, they call this, by the way, if you're a doctor or a scientific person, you'll say these are circulating immune complexes, CICs. And autoimmune disease is linked to circulating immune complexes, little clumps of food that are being surrounded with immune cells. And when these little clumps of food come to rest in different organs, they initiate a defensive response against that organ. In your case, the connective tissue. So, what do? And now we got, did I make sense? Everybody with me so far?
Yep.
You've got something getting into the blood, it initiates an immune response. That immune response eventually comes to rest in a different gland or organ of the body. The body then mounts an attack against that gland. So right away you have the immediate cure. Stop eating. And everybody who has an autoimmune disease, everybody with a capital E who has an autoimmune disease will notice their symptoms resolve and get better and improve when they fast. Everybody across the board. Now, you can't fast forever. You ought to eventually eat. So what you do after you eat, after you fast, is you do what's called the elimination diet. Now, the way you fast, by the way, one of the best ways to fast, it's obviously easy to fast, but one of my favorite ways to fast is to do something called a swear-o-be cleanse. Okay? Swear-o-be cleanse. I don't know how many of you guys know Jordan Rubin or Beyond Organics. Jordan Rubin is the guy who started Beyond Organics. He's an absolute brilliant formulator and digestive system specialist. He cured himself of autoimmune disease, and that's how he got into business. He created a product called the Swear-o-be. The Swear-o-be is made up of fermented whey and electrolytes, and it helps you go into your fast for people who don't want to fast. You do a square week cleanse, half a bottle of square week every hour for 2 or 3 days. And then when you start eating again, you get a little notebook, and you write down everything you eat, and you start off with your favorite food, and you spend all day just eating cheese, or ice cream, or butter, however do this. And after 3 days of a square week cleanse, or fast, and then you eat the ice cream and the butter, guess what's going to happen to your friend? She's going to be like, I'm in pain, oh my God. And she's going to see for herself the connection, and I'm guaranteeing you this, by the way, 100%. She'll see for herself the connection between what she's eating and her inflammatory symptoms, and it cannot be any other way. This is the only way it can happen, unless you believe in pixie dust on your head. This is the only way it can occur. Now, simultaneous with this, you have to strengthen the gut. Anything you can do to strengthen the gut. Ultimate nightly essence, probiotics. The Fuchs Z, by the way, is wonderful for helping strengthen the gut. I didn't tell you this. The Fuchs Z is made up with something called polysaccharides, which are very similar to they're not exactly the same, but they're like the plant's version of those connective tissue components we talked about. The Fuchs Z and the Z radical are made with the plant or the algae's version of connective tissue substances. So using the Fuchs Z, using cartilage retaining products like the glucogel counts, using the ultimate enzymes, and of course the nightly essence, the Healthy Start Pak, because you cannot build connective tissue without vitamin C and to a certain extent your electrical nutrients. So food fasting, this is for all autoimmune diseases, protocol. And you see how it fits in everything we talked about, by the way, for the last 2 hours. Number 1, you fast for a couple of days or do a square week cleanse. Number 2, you do a food diary and elimination diet. Number 3, you start to build up the gut with ultimate enzymes, ultimate nightly essence, Fuchs Z, Healthy Start Pak, glucogel caps, chicken soup, aloe vera, noni juice, anything you can do to build and strengthen the digestive tract. And now later on, you're going to have to work with the blood sugar system because that's our second point. And then you're going to always want to relax the body. That is deep breathing and anything she can do to relax her musculature, massage, or hot water, hot baths. If she does everything I just said, or even close to everything I just said, she's going to think you dropped in from heaven just to help her, which you did. So this is true for everybody, not just not just for Karen. It's true for everybody. People, when you tell them these things, I'm guaranteeing you this, you guys. If you do all of this stuff, they're going to think you dropped in from heaven just to help them, which you did. Thank you so much. LCD.
Okay, we have young children, and one has a severe...
You have a young child?
3.
But you are a young child.
I know. That's crazy. One of them has a severe dairy allergy, and then a lot of her friends had like egg allergies.
What do you do?
Well, she does healthifying eggs, and it's also takes care of belly, and we've noticed improvements. But I didn't know if there's something else.
All right, so dairy and egg are 2 wonderful, wonderful foods. They're very dense proteins, and they're filled with living protein. Because dairy is obviously, it's a living food. It comes from an animal, and it's designed to grow a baby. So it's very packed. Anytime you have a packed protein, a dense protein, a protein that's got living substances in it, it's going to be problematic for some people. Dairy allergies and egg allergies are very common. So here's a couple things you can do. Number 1, and it's great that they improve with the root of your belly, because a lot of times we think we have an allergy to certain food, but really it's dysbiosis, which is a fancy way of saying messed up gut bacteria. So use the nightly essence if you can, because the nightly essence has got more bacteria than any other. My favorite of Japanese probiotics because it's got multiple strains and it's got a huge amount of bacteria, plus it has enzymes in it as well. So I always go with that first. If they can do the Fuchs Z, that's better. By the way, Fuchs Z is better than the Z radical because the Z radical is very sweet, it's got sugar in it, and it also is liquid. You don't get as much fucoiding, as much of the active material. So Fuchs Z or the Z radical, they'll do that depending on their age. If you get into fuels and enzymes with meals, that will help. And also, how you prepare your dairy and how you prepare your eggs has a large impact to play on how reactive you'll be. So some people can do raw eggs, but they can't do soft boiled. Some people can do poached eggs, but they can't do raw. So you might want to play around with dosing. With eggs, you got to be a little careful because you don't want to overcook your eggs, and you don't want to cook your eggs at a high heat. So you got to be a little bit careful with the eggs. Same with dairy. Sometimes can do butter, but they can't do milk, but they can do cheese, and they can't do yogurt. You'll have to play around. So use all the nutritional support supplements and then play around with the way you do it. Okay, thank you. Ehlers-Danlos. She's born with Ehlers-Danlos? She's born with it?
We don't know.
How old is your daughter?
She's my granddaughter.
Oh, she's a granddaughter, yeah. She's 18, son?
She's 18 and I just discovered a figure.
And she's sort of, she's arthritis or what's
Well, her
Ehlers-Danlos is her name. Tell me your name. Nancy. Nancy asked about a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Okay? Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is where the body just falls apart. And they call it a disease, they call it a syndrome, but remember, your diagnosis doesn't matter. That's just a name so you can go into the computer. That's just a name so you can have special protocol. That's just a name so you can wear a little baseball hat. I have Ehlers-Danlos Association. They have names so they can have foundations, so they can collect money. That's why they have names for everything, so they can have a race. Or they can have yellow t-shirts. It doesn't matter. Your sister's or your granddaughter's body is dissolving. Her connective tissue is dissolving. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is this condition where you have arthritis, and joints start to elbow or shoulder starting to droop. The body starts to dissolve. By the way, Doctor will tell us this. I can pick on you, Doc. What is the classic disease? What is the classic disease that's caused by, or that's marked by, connective tissue dissolution? Classic. Starts with an S. No S. You know it. No. Classic, iconic. The reason doctors know is because nobody ever has it, or at least they don't tell you you have it. It's called scurvy. It's called scurvy. Now, you never see scurvy, right? Nobody ever sees scurvy because it's under the radar. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is the same as scurvy. It's the same stuff. The name doesn't matter. The fact is that the body's dissolved. So first of all, right off the bat, we know the cure for scurvy is vitamin C. And we know the cause of scurvy is vitamin C. Just immediately get your friend on vitamin C. Or your granddaughter on vitamin C. High doses of it. Beyond tangerine is a great source of vitamin C. Okay? Exactly. Also, all the things we talked about building connective tissue, glucosamine, cartilage. Because absorption of nutrients is just as important as taking the nutrients, making sure you're working on the gut. Using the nitric acids, using the ultimate enzymes. The ultimate enzymes will give you a bonus because they're anti-inflammatory. Making sure she's using glucogel packs. Making sure she's keeping her blood sugar stable because cells need a clean place to do their work. Have you guys noticed that no matter what people are coming up here asking, I'm saying the same thing? I want you to hear that. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is this mystery. Nobody has any idea what to do. It's a curse. But now that you've broken this thing down, the simplexity underneath the complex leaves, the root of the leaves, she's got a connective tissue dissolution problem. Now we've simplified everything. Get her on the Healthy Start Pak, work on the digestive system, make sure you're doing probiotics, food diary, have her when she's quick, where she gets quick results, have fast, reduce where we cleanse for a couple of days, she'll get very quick results. So get the name. She's got a connective tissue dissolution problem where she's dissolving trauma production of the connective tissue. Did you guys catch that? Yeah. That's so important because otherwise, if you're like 99% of the people out there, you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you're going to think it's a curse that's forever if you have it. Work on the connective tissue building strategies. Thank you. With you, yes, let's see how we do. 9 more minutes. So 10 more minutes. We'll take 2 or 3 more questions. Yes.
Thank you, Pharmacist.
Thank you.
Would you please explain to me how I can get off of Centroid? The thyroid has been eradicated. And I'm on blood pressure medicine, beta blocker, because I had a stroke.
Okay, it's a great question. So Tawanda's got a little interesting thing happening. Okay? So everything I talked about for the last 2 or 3 hours presupposes that you have all your organs. Tawanda's have a thyroid, and thyroid is a very, very important organ. So once the thyroid gland is gone, the body loses its ability to regulate energy in a calm, normal, healthy way. So now it depends on what system to run it. The adrenals, Without the thyroid, one is running on adrenal energy. You gotta have insomnia, and you gotta have sleeping and all that. Oh, you sleep well. Well, you're on beta blocker. You wouldn't sleep well if you weren't on the beta blocker. Beta blocker is a drug that knocks you out. Because without the beta blocker, Tuan is running on emergency energy. She'd be like all over the place. She would be jittery and wouldn't be able to sleep. All the markers of adrenal excess would be for Tuan to be running on that kind of energy. So that's why they give you the beta blocker. That's probably why you sleep. You may be tired. So here's the deal. You just shouldn't have thyroid. This is so important for you guys to hear. What Tuan has to do, you thought about the third person there. What Tuan has to do is she has to, and you all have to do this really, what Tuan tremendously has to do this, is she has to treat her body as if it were her baby. Do you have a baby? So when your baby is crying, you make sure you love that baby. You nurture the baby. You pet the baby. You see if there's anything in the baby's room that's causing distress. You calm the baby. You rock the baby. You sing to the baby. Well, guess what, Wanda? You have a baby called your body. And your body is like one of those babies you see on the History Channel in World War II, when there's been bombs all over the city and there's a baby in the middle of the street crying. Your baby is in tremendous distress. Tremendous distress. So what you have to do is you have to start to love your baby. Anything that's getting into your body that's causing distress needs to be eliminated.
God bless you guys.
Anything that's not getting into your body needs to be put in. You're not, forget your thyroid, forget your high blood pressure, is that what you said? Forget your hypertension, forget all of that. What you want to focus on is loving your baby. If anybody out there has a chronic health challenge, you want to simplify it, you want to make it into a personify it, so it's more relatable. Picture your body as a baby. No matter what our health challenges are, they represent a baby in distress. One of your baby is in major distress. So number one, the first thing you do to calm the baby is you oxygenate. You should be spending 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes in the at least minimum, sitting on the couch, practicing slow, deep breathing. This will calm the adrenal glands down a little bit. You still got some issues, but calm them a little bit. Slow deep breathing. You should be loving hot baths, loving hot showers. You should be getting massages if you can get massage. You should be doing anything that you can do to relax your body, relax the muscles. Imperative. I can't stress that enough. The second major stress on the body is sugar. Tawandic, you can no longer eat like your friends. None of us should be doing this. We do special. I understand that you're an extreme case here. So none of us should be doing it. These are all things everybody should be doing, and none of us should be doing some of these things. You have no window of flexibility. Your window is very narrow. So you should be avoiding anything that spikes your blood sugar like the plague. That means bread, and pasta, and potatoes, and rice, and cereal, and fruit juice, and fruits, and desserts, and oatmeal. Anything that spikes your blood sugar is your mortal, literally, your mortal enemy. More protein will help you. More fat will help you. And I forgot to tell you this, but one of the all-time great remedies, I hate that word remedies, but one of the all-time great strategies for the adrenal glands is salt. Celtic sea salt. Probably great salt. So what you want to do is get yourself some Celtic sea salt. And everybody should be doing this, especially if you have some adrenal problems. We all benefit from this. Celtic sea salt, put half a teaspoonful in water, and then sip on it. And the first sip of the Celtic sea salt and water for most people will be the most delicious beverage you've ever had in your life. And then the next little sip will be a little less delicious, the next little sip less delicious, and then by the 4th or 5th or 6th, you won't want any more. And somebody can put some pretzels right in front of you, and you won't even want to go near it, or whatever it is your favorite salty food is, once you've met your body's need for salt. When the adrenal glands are cranking out, as yours are, you burn through salt very quickly. The adrenal glands are your salt glands. That's exactly why you need a whole bag of potato chips. But if you do this, your body won't let you have it. So make sure you're doing salt water. Stabilize the blood sugar. Get on the sweets if you're not already. Get on the Healthy Start Pak, that goes without saying. Use the Fuchs. By the way, the Fuchs is great for blood sugar issues as well as I said earlier, for digestive issues. Even though we don't talk about it, it's also a wonderful blood thinner. And then you might want to throw in, if you want to throw in a couple other products, throw in enzymes with your digestion for your digestion. Yes, to your digestion. And and then keep track of foods that cause you distress of any kind. Constipation especially, because you're probably constipated with beta blockers. So any foods that make your constipation worse, you've got to, or foods that you need to eliminate. Exactly. What you're going to notice, once you do this program, your dose of beta blockers will start to go down. You're going to have to work with your doctor on this because you may be overdosed with medicine. Once you start doing all this, tell your doctor what you're doing, and gradually get yourself off. The synthroid is a very interesting strategy. It's useless. 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 You got two kinds of thyroid hormone. Okay, you got active thyroid hormone and you've got inactive thyroid hormone. The body is designed to activate the thyroid hormone in the gut. The synthroid they're giving you is the inactive thyroid hormone, T4. If you're taking the inactive thyroid hormone but you're not activating it, then you're not getting the benefit of the thyroid hormone, which is why they got to keep playing with the dose. They probably got to keep playing with the dose on you. Have they set one dose for you? It fluctuates. Of course it fluctuates. It always does. Ask any pharmacist in here, by the way. Any pharmacist will tell you that synthroid doses always fluctuate. I don't know if you ever write prescription for synthroid, but doctors know they got to keep adjusting the dose on synthroid. It's a useless medicine. What you should be doing, however, is selenium, ultimate selenium, iodine, vitamin A, zinc, the Healthy Start Pak. Hey, Leon. The Healthy Start Pak. Jen. Thank you very much. All right, we got one more. One more question. One more. And for you guys, I'll stay as long as you want. And then also, you can send me an email. You got to give me some time because I get tons of emails to ben@ksco.com. Yes.
Thank you for the whole detailed information. I have a
You can take it.
Yes, also. But I have a friend of mine last week that found out he had doctor against colitis, and they were getting ready to operate. He said no. And I told him, I said, let me call the different cut out parts and test it. And I meet with him this week, and I want to give him everything that he needs.
Right away. Diverticulitis is another one of those names. It means inflamed little pockets of the intestine. You don't have to worry about the name. He's got a digestive problem. That's all you need to know. So what do? Number one, you guys are going to throw tomatoes at me here because I'm going to say the same thing. Number one, you got to swear to be cleansed. You'll immediately feel better. Okay? Fasting or swear to be cleansed. Number two, you get into your food diary. Now, if you already has a diverticulitis, you got to be careful about fulfilling with your favorite foods because they may cause a problem. So have him eat small amounts of whatever he normally eats and track how he feels after he eats those foods. Grains are going to probably be a problem. Dairy will probably be a problem for him. Seeds may be a problem for him as well. Seeds and nuts, which are grains. So have him pay close attention to those specific foods. Use the nightly essence to repopulate the gut. Also fermented foods. Sauerkraut, miso, tempeh. He's really ambitious. He can make his own fermented foods. It's very easy to make your own fermented food, by the way. All you got to do is put some bacteria in your vegetables and you got fermented food. So have to make his own fermented food. Power restriction. Second step is going to be stabilize the blood sugar. Use the sweeties to keep the sugar down. Foods to spike blood sugar. Third, relax. On your conditions of sympathetic nervous system overdrive, the digestive system shuts down. The intestine shut down. The shutdown intestine is not this guy's friend. So relaxing the body. By the way, for anyone who's constipated, when you're, I don't know if I can say this, I wouldn't say this. When you're trying to have bowel movement, go like this. Don't go. Because you'll activate the sympathetic nervous system. So relax the body, relax the intestine. And you can relax your intestine by just relaxing your body. Even if you're in the shower, you can have a hot water on your belly. That will relax the intestine. A hot water bottle will relax the intestine. Talking to your intestine will relax it. Who's not somebody to talk to their body and thank their intestine? All these are strategies for relaxing the intestine. Thank you guys very much. You've been great.